Thank you. Arlene, can you roll call, please?
Yes. Francis Bach,
Here.
Bill Taylor,
Here.
Jim Grimes,
Give me any shit tonight.
Rick Drew, Jim Grimes,
Probably gonna be censored.
Jim's here.
okay, Rick
Yes, I'm
Drew,
here.
Present.
John Aldred,
Absent.
Brian Burns,
Here.
Del Cullum, Susan McGraw-Keeber,
Here.
and Susan Vorpel.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Start with public comment. John, done?
Quick.
Okay. Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
I'm going to talk about oyster gardening real quick and request yet another site. We're taking over. No, just kidding. So I'm just going to talk about our oyster gardening program real quick, a quick history for those that aren't aware of it. Why isn't this working? Oh, there we go. So we started in 2016 with our oyster gardening program in 3 Mile Harbor. We had about 15 gardeners. The year after that, we expanded the 3 Mile Harbor garden to 40 plots. We call them plots. And we also expanded into Hog Creek. Last year, 2018, we expanded again into Accabonac and had about 11 gardeners in there. And this year, we're hoping to add Napeague to the network, if you will. So I'll get to where exactly we were looking at, based on CPF purchases in a bit. So about the program, we're enriching stewards of the marine environment. The people that do our oyster gardening are already advocates of the marine environment, of shellfish and the waterways. And we're increasing outreach and local knowledge about the existence of our hatchery, trying to get the word out. And of course, you all know about oysters and their qualities, the filter feeding, habitat producing, nitrogen sequestering qualities of the oysters. And it allows people to get out there and get in the water, get muddy. The program this year, we're looking at our first lecture/workshop on March 2nd. That'll be out at the hatchery. Rootstock conditioning, biology of shellfish, and algae culture. And we're actually, just this week, we're installing a brand new, relatively state-of-the-art algae culture system. So that'll be up and running by the end of the week. Next workshop will be March 30th. That's spawning and hatchery culture. April 27th, we're going to talk about diseases, pests, and predators over at SOFO in Bridgehampton. And then we'll do a nursery tour this year on May 25th. And there's also the oyster garden there at the nursery. Seed will be handed out June 22nd. We'll do a field site tour on July 27th. Hopefully, this is tentative, but it's sort of potluck at the nursery in August. History, a great talk by Kim Tatro of Cornell Cooperative in September on the history of New York shellfish, which is a very interesting history. Have our annual cocktail party at Bay Kitchen Bar Memorial Day weekend, and then another event, Shell It Out event, Labor Day weekend. So this is a picture of our 3 Mile Harbor oyster garden. This was before its expansion, so this is probably the first year. And as you can see, we use these floating cages. These are all brand spanking new and empty. So each grower, the way the program works is each grower gets their own 4-bag cage, and each grower is allowed to grow up to 1,000 oysters. So we give them the seed, all the knowledge, and schedule their maintenance sessions. And then once those oysters reach harvest size, they can take them home and eat them. There's the Hog Creek site. It's actually at 142 Waterhole Road, just north of where it was the very first year. The DEC was a little concerned with its proximity to a seasonal closure line, so we moved it north. Accabonac is at 286 Girard Drive. Really beautiful spot, as all Girard Drive is. And that spot, we just started last year, and it worked out really well. Hopefully, so like I said, we had 11 gardeners there, so hopefully we'll expand that up to, we try to accommodate about 20 at each site. And I've got tons of people on the waiting list, so I'm not too concerned about filling everything up.
Paulie, can you go back to that?
Let's
please?
Yep, this one.
Those little white squares, in lack of a better word, in the middle of,
Like this?
drop down. No, those dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, go, right, all that stuff. Are those cages?
No, those are, I think those are photos.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's,
Yeah,
I should have removed that.
No, that's
layer.
all right. I just want to, my thing is, of course, and I don't want to jump the gun here, is the placement of these in terms of boat traffic.
Right,
Okay,
yeah,
thank
no,
you.
this is just, the only cages for this program are right here off 286
Okay.
Gerard.
Thank you.
That's in the shallower side of the cove.
Yeah, it's,
I.e., you wouldn't expect boat traffic there,
yeah, no, it's pretty, the boat traffic is generally
on that side, the deeper side.
up here.
Yep.
The depth in here is about 5, 6 feet at most at high tide.
Sorry, yeah, mean low water is probably 2 feet.
Yeah, it's pretty shallow. So the Napeag site we're hoping to add to the program is right here at the end of Krasen Boulevard. The town bought this lot here. The house has been since removed. So that's the only, I'm pretty sure that's the only CPF property on Napeag Harbor. And it's a great, it would be a great spot. There's parking, ample parking, great access. So the only downfall is that it's also very shallow and it's,
Is that gonna get too hot in the middle of the summer for you?
no, I don't think so. I think that the exchange in the harbor is still pretty robust due to the inlet. We have, we seed oysters not too much farther north around the corner, and they do great.
Yeah, we did a batch over there with you.
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah. The harbor doesn't get too hot. I mean, in here, possibly, but even in here, the water exchanges pretty quickly through here twice a day. So it's not too much of an issue, I don't think. Hopefully we don't find out the hard way. But like I said, it's really shallow, so this one I think would be a little bit farther offshore, and this would probably be a waiting spot. Our other spots, we try to allow people to access the cages from shore. But this one, I think, due to its depth, would probably be a waiting site, so people would have to wade in, which isn't bad. They do most of their maintenance from May through into October. So it's not too torturous wading in. So that's why obviously this is another view, but so that's why we're here. I'm here tonight to talk about the potential of putting a garden in here.
Hey, Barley,
See what you thought.
just so you know, and I think you're aware, I saw a sign on that little beach area that it's saying that it's owned by an association. So we may want to look into that. I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm not sure either.
But there is a sign at the end of that road, before you make a left, past the
Going up this
trailers.
way?
Yeah, past the trailers, and the road ends, and you can go left or you stop. There's a little sign on
Right.
the right, a white and red sign that says private property. So we may have to look into that, because I imagine folks are gonna wanna, park and get out
Right.
and do their thing.
Right, like that's the idea of the lot being bought by the town there.
Yeah,
Last
this
lot
this
was
lot
bought by the town.
is town property.
Right. Okay, we may want to look into, it's really close to that sign. Okay,
Okay, yeah.
cross that bridge when you get to it.
So, been doing this for 3 years now, and I'm not sure what your procedure is. I still don't remember what the procedure is, so I think you usually notice it,
Yeah, well,
however
the
you'd
last
like to go about it.
2 or 3 times, we did a resolution. I did the one for Hog Creek and then
Okay.
expanding 3 Mile. John embellished that and
Right,
tweaked it
remember that, yep.
for Accabonac. So I think for the next meeting, we would prepare another resolution
Okay,
delineating the site, if you have the lat longitude coordinates, and then someone, could make a motion to bring it up.
okay,
So it'd be something that could take place at the next meeting with a proper resolution in the format of the last few that we did. So that would be a way to go. I have a couple of questions for you, if I may, in general, about the program. At Babes Lane, I did hear from a couple members of the public and that they mentioned that since the expansion, it's been a little tricky to launch kayaks and paddleboards off the beach there. If this year we could just make a little access so that people can safely get in and off the beach, because some people do launch there, they do swim there, and
Yeah,
it just,
definitely.
you know, if you just consider that when you
Yeah.
lay them out, that would be appreciated. Are some of the oysters that are being grown going out into the wild? That was something that was discussed when the program first started, the irregulars
Yeah.
or something? Is that
Well,
something that can be,
because people are limited to 1,000,
right?
so if they repeat year after year, they have to basically cull down to, say, 500 in order to receive new seed.
Okay,
So any of that cull down, that they return that to us, and then we seed it.
okay, good. So
Yeah.
the public is getting some benefit.
Oh, definitely.
Great. And then, this is not related to the oyster program, but how is the growing or cultivation of the white clam strain of clams going?
It's good. Last year, we had a bit of a issue with the white clam crop. Much of it died off on us, and we think it was a handling issue. But we're going to continue again. Our first spawn should be
Yeah.
predominantly white.
Why I ask is I was hopeful that, you know, you might consider trying, putting some out in certain areas of outer Northwest Harbor
Mhm.
to kind of diversify and get some, you know, I know that the other strain, the Tata,
Notada, yeah.
Notada didn't do so well there when John Aldred was running the hatchery. But I know at one point, there was quite an abundance of white clams in Northwest Harbor. And I was hoping that you might consider maybe a little pilot spot and see if we could get some
So
white.
you want it out in state water?
Well, I would call it trustee water.
Yeah.
But, you know, trustee bottomland, but something maybe in tight within the 1,500-foot jurisdiction,
Okay.
where it's clear until we can sort other issues out on that.
Okay. Yeah, we should talk about what, if there's any local, your knowledge, local knowledge about.
Yeah,
the
there's
best
some great
site.
spots there. I know
Yeah.
some local baymen that work there. I know Jimmy Lester used to
Okay.
work there.
Yeah, let's get that.
And
And,
there's a couple of really good spots there that I think would be suitable bottomland. But we could go check it out and do a little survey.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Hey, Barley,
Thanks, Barley.
on white clams, they're, it's great, you got the big picture of Napeek Harbor. Have you guys ever collected the seed at the dreens along the south end of Napeek Harbor? Just go a little bit to the west. There's a couple dreens right in that area
Yeah.
there. Have you ever gone in there, like in early summer, midsummer, when literally sometimes it's an inch thick, the seed clams in those dreens sitting on the bottom, you
I
know?
haven't
and-
seen that.
and
I used-
clearly
only
they
time
don't-
I've really gone down there is for
Cle-
brood stock, which is in the
Yeah.
wintertime, but.
Yeah, clearly they're not in a position to really develop there, but, you know, God, sometimes I've seen them so thick, you could just fill buckets up with them. And even this year, the
Not
the
anymore.
north end of Napeek, there was a couple-week period that there was a whole rack line of small clams and stuff.
Right on the
in that-
surface?
Right in that intertidal zone.
Yeah, right. Huh. Were they
interesting.
seed
That's
clams?
promising.
Could you tell, were they notatas or whites or?
The ones this summer on the north side were a mixture of notatas
Yeah.
and white clams. Down the south end, this is years ago, they were all white clams
native.
there.
Native peconic.
But it just
How many
might be an
years
easy,
ago?
might be an easy grab, you know, for,
Spread them out.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. We should definitely
Yeah, take a look down
check
there.
that out. Everybody good with this picture? I don't know what I have left. Nothing, I don't think. No, nothing. So I guess we'll talk
Yeah, I
about the
think
next
John's
meeting.
coming back in a couple days, you know, I'll get with him and see if we can craft something for the next meeting.
Okay. That'd be great. Any other questions?
How healthy has the growing been, seeing that we're in our, what, third year, you said? I mean,
For the gardeners, they're
Yeah.
growing, I didn't mention, but I hired a guy, Connor Burke, to help with the maintenance sessions, and he has his own farm. And he was flabbergasted at the quality of the oysters these folks are growing. It's really restaurant quality stuff.
nice.
He works on
Because
the
they're-
Hog Creek. He's been very helpful. on
Yeah,
Hog
he goes,
Creek.
he's been doing the maintenance sessions at all the sites, and
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, my friends that are
They really are
participating are
great.
growing some amazing oysters.
Great
They're
oysters.
really
Great,
delicious,
yeah.
really high quality.
It's terrific. I'm
yeah, a little bit of
thrilled to see you
attention is
expand.
all it takes. It's really rewarding
Is there anything that
stuff.
we would be concerned about that could hinder growth?
Harmful algaes,
Okay,
disease, which we really don't have problems with.
good.
Can you speak to the issue of the scallops this year? Because we did not have a good scallop season.
No.
What would be the reason that they
Well, I think
did not flourish?
a lot of it is the lack of habitat, because we are seeing recruitment, because we have areas where we keep bags year-round, and we see scallops setting in those bags. They set in the bags and they grow because predators can't get them. Yeah, I think the majority of it is just the desert-like bottom of most of our waterways. Those scallops are setting, they're spawning and setting, and once they set, the predators are just devouring them.
Yeah, they just make little, like, cups in the sand or
Right.
bottom.
If
and
we
they
had
just sit there and
eelgrass, would that
open.
be of help? We could
Eelgrass
grow
or odium,
eelgrass?
even shell rubble is
Shell
better
rubble.
than,
Yeah.
desert
Yeah,
sand.
we should check in with Kim Shaw of Cornell and invite her in, because we had funded the preliminary study in Napeag.
I've had a few
the
calls into
grant.
her on another issue, and.
But
I
we should
can't
check
seem
on
to
the
get her.
grant for the east side of Napeag. So we never really heard back from her after we funded the preliminary study, so that she could get to the next
Right.
level.
Right.
Because the stuff that, especially in 3 Mile, the stuff that we seed, which is 40 millimeters, silver dollar size, does quite well. Because it's,
That was still the best spot, even though
Yeah.
it wasn't
It's
really
just-
Is that
Not
robust.
where
a
we
lot
went
of
out this past fall?
pardon?
John, is that where we went out with,
That was
Harbor?
down south.
Down
This
south.
is off Sammy's Beach.
Okay.
Where we generally seed the scallops.
Yeah, that's.
Not
we
a
went
lot
out
of
seeding.
substrate there, but
That
the
was
shell
oyster.
rubble.
We did
Oh,
We
oysters.
did oysters and we did scallops.
Clams.
Clams, sorry.
But it's been a great spot.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
not
it's been
a-
our most reliable spot.
Yeah. Napeag, it's just sand bottom.
tough.
There's no cover at all.
What do you
Yeah.
attribute, because I remember when Napeag was covered with eelgrass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
we
it
got-
temperature, or is it,
I think it's mostly temperature, yeah, because
Yeah.
eelgrass can't handle temperatures above, sustained temperature above 80 degrees.
Cornell concurs with
And
that, I think.
we've
And they
been-
feel the east side has cold water infusion from underground.
Brown water, yeah.
That's why we still have it over there.
And aside from summer before last wasn't all that hot. It was the shoulder season, which the spring warmed up, and then if you look at once our annual report comes out, if you look at our temperature graph, we have an average over all the years we've been taking temperatures, and then that year's temperatures, and the fall temperatures are way higher than normal. And
Are
that's
there
what's-
any southern species of grass that might move up?
I've talked to the seagrass people about that, and they don't think that's, they've tried actually planting
yeah,
southern.
Chris Pickerel
strains.
told me he
Yeah.
tried it and didn't
They
have
tried
a
it,
whole lot
they
of
just didn't
success.
stick.
Didn't
Yeah.
work.
But you'd imagine that they would
Eelgrass doesn't,
migrate.
it doesn't transplant well. None of that
No,
stuff does.
It's really hard. Shellfish is cake.
Yeah, we,
Eelgrass is, yeah, it's
But in
very hard
addition to it being warmer water, would we have bacteria that would also undermine the growth?
Sure.
well,
Bacteria
the
loves
algae
warm
blooms
water.
were blamed for, the algae blooms were
Yeah.
blamed for the die-off in the 80s.
But you got the water temperatures that
loves
increase the
warm
algae
water.
blooms. You know,
Right.
that's-
Vicious cycle.
It is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Keep your eye out for that vigorous bed of eelgrass and warm water. It could be used as nursery stock.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Tough strain.
And before you finish with this, on another issue, the oyster collection of shells from Bay Kitchen that we did last year, and we brought it over to the garbage dump, Ashley addressed that today, that you were bringing the shells back. Are we gonna start to target other restaurants to collect more shells?
We're gonna,
I'd like
yeah,
to.
we'll talk with you guys
Okay.
about that, because we did I increased the part-time budget to hopefully pay somebody to help out with that,
Okay.
because you and John did that.
Yep.
From the one restaurant. It was we got actually nearly 4 cubic yards of shell from the one restaurant, and a pickup truck bed, like an 8-foot pickup truck bed, is about
Right.
2.5 yards, so you figure 2 pickup truck beds.
Okay.
Which is
It's
a
a
lot for
start.
one
Mhm.
restaurant.
It's a start.
Better than, it's gonna be most of the shell that we need for setting oysters on shell,
Mhm.
and it was great. Yeah, it's free.
Good, so looking
Good.
forward to it.
The
A lot of bees
restaurant was really
buzzing
into it.
around the shells.
Yeah, but it's a lot of work, and it's
Yeah.
stinky.
I know,
It's a concern.
I know. We need a new trailer.
We're putting a new axle
Shell
on.
trailer.
Oh, good. What?
Shell trailer.
Yes, shell
Yeah.
trailer. Well, I was following John in case it broke down to the dump and then back, so, good.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll expand that.
And then you've got the new building coming, right? The new,
See, we have to,
Facility?
we applied for that grant, 2.6 million or so, and we only got 400,000 of it, so we'll reapply. We actually got debriefed, and we believe we'll have a stronger application next year, so we'll reapply next year. But we can use that 400 for design and permitting and stuff.
okay, good. Well, every step forward.
Yeah.
Last question, when do you want to come back to do the annual presentation?
We're pretty much done with it, so whenever, yeah,
The next month or so?
next month, yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you,
All right,
Charlie.
thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Barley. All right, next up is Chuck Bowman.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, Chuck.
Good.
How you doing?
Jim?
Hey, Chuck.
No, disabled
No, fine.
now? I'm here for a modification for our project, Phragmites removal project on Georgica Pond, on Appiquag, 94 Appiquag, which really is pretty simple. It's just to put in rhizome barriers, which are a great idea when you're doing excavation. They're a great idea to have. And Jim, we did get the DEC approval to be able to do that. We modified that permit. So I think it's just a good idea to,
Well, it's just a matter of us. This is a permit that we issued previously for the excavation removal of Phragmites. During the process, they installed a root barrier. Now, that wasn't on the original permit, it wasn't on the original plan. So I asked Chuck to go back to DEC, get a modification of the permit, which he did. Kelly Rosotto forwarded that over to me on January 10th. So really, all this is a vote to accept the modification to the permit, and,
Having gone there with you, if that's a motion, I would second it.
yeah, this is a job that the excavation phase of it is complete, the planting. When do you think you're gonna do the planting over
Well, it's
there,
going to
Chuck?
depend on the
Probably
weather.
June-ish?
Yeah, again, it depends
Yeah.
on the weather, but
Yeah, it's
we,
not a-
I stop there every week just to make sure the silt screens are in
Yeah.
place and everything else, and now the pond is very low.
Yeah, but this is something that you typically wouldn't do this kind of planting until the weather's really warmed up. Otherwise, you're just feeding the waterfowl. They tend to eat it faster than it can grow.
But the barriers are a great idea for when you're excavating, because there are Phragmites on either side that can encroach, so it just makes a whole lot of sense. And they're very, the impact is very minor.
That's that plastic that,
Yep.
Yeah.
And it goes down into the ground
Right,
24
right.
inches. It's 30 feet on either side during the
Does
Phragmites.
anybody want to make a motion to accept the modification?
Well, you made the motion and I seconded it.
Oh, okay, so,
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
okay.
So the second project we have is actually two lots, the same owner, on Cove Hollow Road. That's 3 and 7. And that is really just a Phragmites cutting project, which is the same specifications that we've used, but also establishment of a 50-foot wide buffer. Right now, the buffer area is basically a mowed field that has been left to grow back. But I think buffer, there's lots of invasive vines in there, and I think the buffer will be a good thing to have. I did get a call when, Jim, you asked about the dredging project. I did get a call from Joe Edgar, and I.
Yeah, and
I
he
told
said
him-
he knew you.
Oh, yeah, no, I've worked with him a long, long time ago. But, the owner is still willing, if, whatever the trustees want, to work with you. I don't know how
Okay,
that turned out.
he's, I think, Sarah, this is the property that we discussed. When I spoke to Joe last week, he very much liked the idea of it. It would require the Friends of Georgica, one, to secure permission from this property owner, two, to go back to DEC for a modification, which I don't think you would really have a problem with.
Well, I know you wouldn't have a problem with it. I mean,
Yeah.
it just makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
The only concern of the property owner
And it was Joe's concern, which actually I didn't really understand, was that it might be difficult to get the material out then. And I didn't, I mean, again, I've known him for a
Did he,
while.
yeah, but I don't know, did Joe actually go over, because you know what happened is, he originally looked at a Google Earth photograph of the property, which showed Phillips's house still there.
Right.
The vacant lot, didn't really understand that this was a property under construction, and his initial reticence at getting involved when he spoke to the Friends was, he really didn't want to get involved in an existing landscape. When he understood that you were working with bare ground, his opinion changed a little bit.
I gave him a little map. I told him where to go, you know, down on the
Yeah.
south side there through the old arbor and down, and he looked at it. I told him our discussion was that, you know, he would dig a, you know, shallow trench to put the geotubes in and be able to fill them, and that all seemed to be fine. You know, he didn't know if there was going to be a cost savings or it would be more difficult. To me, it seems much easier, but, you know, I mean.
Well,
not the
I
dredge
tell you
guy.
what, my concern always has been from the beginning of this, is the other site is somewhat flat. You got a road there, you have an area that's already wet,
Right?
okay? And when you get into your
Dewatering,
dewatering,
it's tough.
I don't think when the original proposal went through there, I know that Bruce didn't fully comprehend how much water you generate and how quickly you generate it. and
We have a
what was-
lot of experience with geotubes and
Yeah.
dredging projects, and you really need some good separation between groundwater and the geotube for it to be able to dry out, so then you can
Yeah.
tear it open and take the material out. And I know you said it was mostly sandy material, but I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some fines in there too. And, you know, it just made sense, but anyway, I just wanted to give you an update that I
All
did
right.
talk to him. I did show him where, you know, it would be.
Now, Chuck, I don't have, I have the DEC permits you got here. I didn't get a chance to really read through them. Maybe you could just give us the Reader's Digest version of what's gonna go on in that 50-foot wide buffer as part of the activities of this.
Yeah,
this
I think
project.
it's more of adding plant material to it, Jim, in that 50-foot buffer. We'd be taking out any of the invasives, the non-natives, and then really adding material to it. I did get comments back, preliminary comments, or Kelly did, from the village, and I think that they're on board, except for in our plan, it says we would keep the shrubs we planted at a 4-foot height, and there was an objection to that, which I think I'm gonna have to work out with the village, just because most owners, if they're gonna be doing the buffer, they'd like to see
They still
over it.
wanna see the pond.
See over it, and I get that, and in my experience, the 4-foot height, it's kind of accomplishes both. It gets very dense, and it has the same benefit of uptake of nutrients and good habitat and everything like that. But anyway, that's the comment we got back from the village so far. The Phragmites cutting protocol is basically the same that we've been used and that you guys have approved. But it's going to be a pretty minimal undertaking. I mean, we're not ripping everything out. We want to go in there and take out the invasives and then add material to it.
Yeah. Just to give our board a little background, this is what was the old Phillips property, if you know Cove Hollow Farm Road. It's the first house on the left-hand side, and they always owned the vacant property next door. The nice thing about this application is you have an area that the Phragmites actually was excavated for a good portion of the shoreline about 10 years ago. Unfortunately, almost immediately after this, Mr. Phillips passed away. Mrs. Phillips didn't want to continue the work, so a lot of the Phragmites grew back. But what also is quite prevalent there is a lot of natives. You know, this is a property that, in all honesty, the emergent and the shoreline areas are not going to need any revegetation. There's a great body of plant material that's there that right now is being a little bit suppressed by the Phragmites, but I think this has the potential of being one of the better restoration projects along Georgia, and I would certainly support it. The benefit of having a dedicated 50-foot wide buffer that's actually being maintained is good. The prior property owner, when they did the Cove Hollow Farm subdivision, there is a scenic easement along the shoreline there that unfortunately for many years the village didn't really enforce. So almost every single property has violated it in one form or another. This property owner just continued to mow the lower portions on an annual basis. The fact that they're proposing now to come in, remove the invasives and enhance it with some other woody vegetation, I think is really a plus. And I would actually like to make a motion to approve.
I say,
this.
just one more thing, that, you know, there were evidence there of that in the past of, you know, significant amount of bayberry that had been cut down to the ground, and that's all gonna be replaced, so
Yeah, having been on, being that I'm on that committee and met with you and Jim and walked through it, and I always feel like I'm on a field trip with you guys, you know, carrying your lunch, but I think I have a handle on what you're saying, so I concur.
I didn't have my boots that day, so.
I know
it
he
was
did.
just- you know,
So, yes, Jim, you know, I would second that motion, so.
Any comments from anybody else on the board want
Thank
to
you
say
for the
something?
description and
Yeah,
You wanna say something?
what you're saying, Jim, is very helpful.
This is what we've been trying for in a lot of projects.
Going back to Chuck's comments and your comments, Jim, about the dredging project, I did speak with Joe Edgar, in fact, today, and he feels that it would definitely be, of course, shorter to pipe the stuff onto the construction site from the original site, but he did reiterate that he felt it would be more difficult to truck it out from that site for whatever reason, I guess, you know, because it's, earth is being moved and there's no real road, or I don't know why.
It is a construction site.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think, but certainly we can make provision for a
Yeah,
construction
listen.
route. There already is, it's
Yeah.
totally.
Sarah, I looked at it this way. You got a soil composition over there that is somewhat sandy, okay? It's pretty, it's a pretty weatherproof site,
And high.
and it's high.
Right.
Okay, and what you did have at the other site.
Right,
We
it's,
all looked at, and we
right.
didn't see anything like the volume of water that you're gonna see when Joe cranks up a dredge on that. My concern is that is just drying that material out and the amount of collateral damage that we're gonna do on village property here, okay, where right now you've got a site under construction, you got bare, open ground. Honestly, if you're a contractor, it doesn't get any better, because,
I was talking to Joe about that, I mean, and with YouTube, you know, all you're doing is, I mean.
Cutting it
you're
cutting it
just
open.
Cutting a little swale, I mean, you're already on a, kind of on a slope, you'd just be pushing that up, have a little swale to lay the geotube in it and pump into it.
yeah, and at the
So-
end of the day, you're gonna cut the geotube open, you're gonna dig the material out, you're gonna load it on a truck, and it's gonna go to wherever. Now, I did see in that email that went back and forth before, there was some dialogue about mixing it with the soils on site. Remember, you guys have gotta do testing on this stuff, and I wouldn't wanna put, Chuck, I wouldn't wanna put you or your
Well, I think
Well-
we can put that in the.
We've already done the testing, and
And-
the DEC has declared that it's, I forget exactly what the terminology is, but that it could be moved anywhere. It doesn't have to go to a,
Beneficial.
Okay.
that wasn't quite the language, but it didn't need to go to a designated
Okay.
hazardous.
So if that's
Site.
the case, it
So-
could be,
Yeah, no, I say, the property owner which we represent, we just wanted to see a copy of the test results.
Right.
Yep.
That's all.
And the builder's comfortable with this, as the homeowner is as well?
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
Everyone's-
Yeah, no, we made the offer, we talked to him about
Right.
it, and, you know.
And
Sarah, I sat in that meeting with you.
Right.
And the village expressed some concern about modifications to their permits and all the other permits.
Well, then that's my next question. So
Yeah.
you both said that you didn't think the DEC would have any problems with the changing the recipient site. What do you base that on?
Oh, just, 30 years.
30 years of changing
Ba-
permits.
Based, I think he's basing that on the fact that you're moving your dewatering from a dewatering site from a right in the middle of a DEC-regulated wetland to a site that's somewhat upland, it's dry.
It's a better separation between
better- be a better-
groundwater, it's gonna dewater better, as long as the material isn't contaminated.
Right.
It just makes it's easier to dewater and to then move, it's a shorter time frame to dewater, so you can get it out of there.
But we're not, not trying to marry you into this. This was merely a suggestion to try and perhaps save the Friends of Georgia a little bit of money.
Well, also, there's no
Make for a
disturbance
better
of other-
project.
of
Of the-
vegetation.
of the
I mean, this
village.
is, this is
Right.
like a field right now, so, I mean, you're not
Yeah,
even taking
well,
out-
I think from what Joe says, the cost is sort of a wash, as long as it's not very difficult to remove it from the site, which was his main concern. But if you can reassure me that,
Yeah, I talked about that, and again, I've dealt with him before, and dredging projects all over, but pumping distance is a big cost factor.
is shorter,
You
yeah.
know, so.
Well, we
he
saw
was
that
saying
with
he
the
had to
last
use a-
effort, that pumping
he said
became a
he
huge
Right.
issue for us.
This guy,
so-
tell you what, talking to this guy, you're dealing with a different
Okay,
animal.
so I don't want to take any more of the board's time. I just want to make
All right.
sure that we were clear on those issues. I'm happy to go back to Joe and.
Well, it's up to you guys, I mean, again,
Yeah, well, I want to, I want the trustees
It
to,
seems to make sense.
Well, Chuck, thank you for leaving the door open on that.
yeah,
We're gonna meet Wednesday. In the meantime, I'll call Becky over at the village, see what her feelings are about this.
okay.
We can hash this out
Great.
with you
All
on
DEC
Wednesday.
would need would be just a
A
little
new
sketch,
site map.
little
Yeah,
sketch
there
of
should be,
where
there should be more
disposal area.
conversation with the village before we vote on
That's
this.
no big.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
we'll discuss
Well,
it
no, but I mean-
on Wednesday.
I mean, this
Thank
is
you
two,
so much.
guys, we're looking at two totally separate deals here. He's got an application that's for the cutting and removal of Phragmites in this
Okay.
area and the planting enhancement of this 50-foot buffer. Sarah's work, if it happens on this property, is going to be occurring outside of that 50-foot buffer. So they're two
Totally separate.
standalone, separate projects.
Okay, so you made a motion for the
Cutting.
cutting. Is that,
Cutting, the selective removal of other invasives, and the, ultimately, the enhancement of the
okay,
50-foot
so I
walkway.
was getting confused there.
And you seconded.
And you second,
Right,
okay?
yeah, as a committee member, I went there with Jim, yes, I second it.
Anybody else have questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you all. Yep.
Thanks, Chuck.
Chuck, thank you.
All right, next up, Eric Brown.
Good evening, Mr. Clerk, members of the board. Eric Brown from Ackerman Partners. I'm here on 85 West End Road and 95 West End Road. I think these are the properties that are at the extreme end. They comprise the very end of West End.
85 and
85 and 93.
If you want to
West End Road.
delve, you'll
Georgia
see.
Capon side or Ocean side?
85
you
is,
have it from a while
is
ago.
Ocean, the other is called the Pond House that faces the,
Yeah.
there's a house on the pond, Rick, but it wraps around.
No.
The actual, the
But it's-
oceanfront
Del's
parcel
exactly the same.
where the main house is actually smaller than the 95 parcel, which wraps all the way around. So it fronts, yes, no problem. This is, I think I've appeared in front of you guys at least 3 other times on this exact same project. There's actually a covenant in favor of the trustees that requires the property owner to keep the revetment covered with sand. You guys know this area as well as anybody. It's always a challenge to keep sand there, so we're back in front of you again to ask to reinvigorate the project. There'll also be a staircase component. Jim and Bill were kind enough to join me out there on a very brisk day this morning to walk around. The one thing I think Jim asked that we do is also include some sand fencing, which we did not include in the main body of the application, and we're happy to do that.
Great.
And who's the contractor on that?
It's going to be Keith Grimes, I believe.
When are you gonna do the work?
We'd like to try and do it, Bill, before, I get it in before plover season, try to get through at least some of March because the weather is so, adverse at that point.
That's the property.
Just bring you guys up to date. Bill and I were at the site today. I think Brian's handed around photographs. Now, actually, those photographs, it actually looks a little better now than those photographs. Bill, I think, took some today. There's actually about a 2-foot toe of windblown sand has kind of built up here since the original photos were taken, so it's actually a little less invasive project than it normally is. But the goal here is real simple: cover the rocks, plant it up with beach grass. We had suggested to Eric today and Scott DeBreiner from InterScience to add into this project, add the request for a permit for the sand fencing, put it all in as one permit, and allow this to go through. I don't think we need time personally to deliberate this. This is part of an ongoing maintenance issue down here. It's very straightforward. And I would make a motion that we approve it tonight with the only stipulation is that you put in an application.
For the sand
Put in a note, it could even be in a narrative.
Okay.
That you'd like to do two courses of sand fencing.
Of course.
And
Yeah,
I think this is really ready to go.
Yeah, the Rainers have been good stewards of the beach down there, and the revetment is one of the more
They've given God a lot of sand, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they put a lot of sand down there.
Year after year after year, right?
I'm happy to say that they really do try hard to
They
keep
do.
it covered up, more so than a lot of other folks along that stretch.
They do try, Rick.
So I would second that motion.
Okay, anyone else have questions?
On the application, when Susan asked Keith Grimes, I don't see the
When that application was made, the contractor had not been selected. Okay,
Yeah, the
that was
client-
something that only happened about a week or 10 days
Yeah,
ago.
the client has since retained Keith.
Can you put that in the narrative? just
Of
as a
course,
reference,
sure,
please?
of course.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
everybody.
Eric.
Nice evening.
Yep, you too.
You as well.
Okay, Rick Whalen.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Richard Whalen. I am speaking here as a private citizen. What I wanted to discuss or bring to your attention is what I see as an emerging conflict between the interests of the town trustees in improving surface water quality in the harbors that you own, harbors and ponds and so forth that you own, and the positions that are being taken by the town planning department right now, and to some extent the zoning board of appeals. Let me set the table by explaining how zoning practice has kind of changed over the years. What I'm really talking about is development and redevelopment in areas on or adjacent to the shorelines around the harbors of the town. As you probably know, as you certainly know, the town has wetland setback requirements, and if you propose, let's say, a house addition that doesn't meet a wetland setback, you will need a variance for that. If you are within 150 feet of a wetland and you're building a house addition, or 200 feet for a septic system, you will need a natural resources special permit. So if you need a wetland variance or a natural resources special permit, you go to the town zoning board of appeals. Those applications are reviewed by the planning department, which writes memos and then speaks at the hearing and addresses the zoning board and tries to influence the zoning board's decision-making process. In the old days, not that long ago, the zoning board followed, I think, more strictly the actual letter of the regulations. If you needed a variance, they would look at the variance standards. If you had, let's say, a hardship, so let's say your family is growing, you need an addition, they will look at what that hardship or difficulty is, compare it to the possible impact that you might have on the wetlands or on the water body, and decide whether or not to grant you a variance. What's happened in recent years is much more of a let's make a deal kind of situation. And what I mean by that is the board seems to almost exclusively look at what kind of mitigation does the applicant have to offset their proposal. Generally, of course, we're talking about either new construction on vacant land, and they're talking about how big your house is, or they're talking about additions to an existing building. Most commonly, they're probably additions or redevelopment of an existing house. So the board and the planning department especially is very much fixated on the house size. And if you want to make something bigger, they're not going to pay too much attention to what the need is that causes you to ask for a bigger house. They're going to focus on what do you have as an offset is mitigation. So that means it's very important for an applicant now to provide whatever mitigation they have, and also, by the way, not to prematurely give up that mitigation, because you'll never be able to build an addition to your house, if you're near the harbor. And this plays into, of course, the new low nitrogen sanitary systems that we have. As you probably know, since January 1 of last year, 2018, the town board has mandated that for all new construction anywhere in the town, not just on trustee harbors and water bodies, but anywhere in the town, all new home construction on vacant land, you have to use a low nitrogen system. The health department refers to them as IAOWTS systems, or innovative and alternative on-site wastewater treatment systems. Basically, what they do is they stir up the waste material in a box. Usually, there's electrical components to it now, and they encourage bacterial growth, and they, it creates a situation where the bacteria eats up most of the nitrogen. These systems are now approved by the health department, and they will reduce nitrogen production. In other words, the amount of nitrogen in your effluent from a septic tank, they will reduce it down to 1/3 to maybe 1/10 of what it was in a traditional sanitary system. So it's a major reduction in nitrogen. If you don't eat up the nitrogen, passing it through even hundreds and hundreds of feet of sand medium before it reaches the harbor does not reduce it very much. You really need to eat it up at the source, and that's what the so-called OWTS systems do. So if you're an applicant now and you're on a harbor or you're around the water bodies, and you want to propose a project, offering that, having the ability to upgrade your sanitary system to an OWTS system is, frankly, it's major mitigation. Scientifically, in most cases, you'll be able to prove that even with your house addition, and of course, house additions can vary in size, but a typical addition of, 1,000 square feet or whatever, you're probably going to be able to show that the harbor is better off with your addition than it was before, that the improvement to the sanitary flow offsets, substantially offsets whatever you're proposing to do, and in most cases is much better than the status quo. Remember that around most of our harbors, most of these waterfront properties, they probably don't even have sanitary systems that comply to the recent current health department regulations. You still have sanitary systems that don't even have septic tanks. You have cesspools or leaching pools that still sit in groundwater. You have separations to the harbor that are 50 feet, 15 feet, very, 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 very small. So when someone comes in, they can propose moving the system back and then upgrading it to a low nitrogen system. Generally speaking, they're going to be able to prove scientifically that there's going to be less effluent, less nitrogen pollution especially, going into the harbor after than before. This would seem to mean that the planning department should see this as a benefit, but that's not the way it's working out right now. I'm going to read from you a recent, when the planning department's issued its reports, they do what's called the Technical Analysis Memorandum, or TAM. And this is a very recent one, and I'm not going to identify the property, but it's on a trustee water body. And here's what they say about the sanitary improvement. 2 sentences. As has been mentioned by the planning department in the past, the new low nitrogen IA sanitary systems should be additional mitigation for appropriately sized development, not a reason to build larger than the town might previously not have allowed. Put another way, what the planning department's been saying at the hearings is they say the new sanitary is not an excuse for larger development. Now, larger development to them means anything bigger than you already have. So it's not like, well, maybe before the board would have allowed a 2,000 square foot house addition and now you want 3,000 square foot. Pretty much if you go in for any kind of an addition for something bigger, the planning department will either oppose it or they will take a very skeptical view of it. They never say it's okay. And that's true, that was true before, and it's still true now, even though the impact of that development is attenuated by the low nitrogen system. The second thing they say is, besides this not being an excuse to build an addition to your house, the second sentence in this memo is, the proposed addition, in this case, might also have been required to upgrade the sanitary system automatically as a substantial mitigation under the town code. So what the town board did in 2018, in addition to requiring all new construction to use an IA system, you also required to upgrade to a low nitrogen system in the following cases. Any voluntary change to your sanitary system, your system fails and you have to replace it, or you propose an addition which is equal to or greater than 50% of the value of your existing house, or 50% or greater of the existing house GFA. This is true anywhere in the town. So if you have let's say you've got a 1,200 square foot house, and you want to propose 600 square feet of house additions, you're going to go from 1,200 to 1,800 square feet. That's a 50% increase in GFA. You would be required to upgrade to a low nitrogen system. So the planning department is saying, so you therefore should be able to use this as mitigation when the code would require you to do it. But of course, there's a flaw in their reasoning. You're only required to do it if you build the addition. You can only build the addition if the zoning board grants you a permit. This isn't a building permit situation. This person needs a natural resources special permit. By the way, the application I'm talking about does not even need variances. It's a natural resources special permit because they're building additions within 150 feet of the water. So in essence, what's happening is that the planning department is discouraging the board. They're telling the board, take a hard line in building additions, even if the evidence is such that with a low nitrogen system, the harbor will be better off. Even if effluent from your sanitary system will be improved and there'll be less nitrogen going into the harbor, you should still deny these applications. My view is that's not in your interest. You guys, I know, are interested in water quality. One of the things I have to give great credit to the trustees for is within the last few years, you have begun to go and really for the first time have scientific analyses done of our water, of our harbor water quality. You know, using Dr. Gobler and Stony Brook, you've been really the first to go and have studies done. So we know what's our baseline in terms of different elements of water quality and how is that changing over time. And that's shown you that, you know, we have problems in some of our harbors. We all want to improve water quality, or at least we should. If the zoning board is going to deny projects that, although they result in larger houses, actually improve sanitary flow to the harbor, that's counterproductive. That's not in your interest, and in my mind, not in the public's interest. And that's what I see is happening. Perhaps you might take the view, well, you know, the town has this new program. When they adopted these requirements, the town also set aside money from the CPF fund, and you can now get money through rebates if you upgrade your septic systems. Remember, that doesn't apply to new construction, but anyone with an existing septic system who upgrades it to a low nitrogen system is entitled to rebates from the town. Also grants from the county and the state. From January of last year when the law applied to January of this year, there have been 114 applications made so far to the town. Those are people applying to find out if they're eligible. The number through January of this year, basic brand new information, the number of sanitary systems that have been upgraded under the town program to low nitrogen systems, 18. I have a list of them. Four of them appear to be in waterfront locations. Remember, you can get I can be in the middle of Amagansett, not near any trustee harbor, and I can still get a rebate. It's $10,000 instead of $16,000. I can also get state and county grants. This is not moving very quickly, all right? If you want to improve water quality along the harbors, the town needs to work with homeowners. If somebody wants to build an addition to their house, and they're going to move their sanitary system back, and they're going to upgrade it to a low nitrogen system. And if you can show, they can demonstrate that that means the effluent, even after the house addition, is going to be cleaner going into the harbor than it was before, then logic dictates that you approve the addition. Because if you don't get the sanitary upgrade. You know, there's a philosophical issue which this is beginning to expose, because it is now possible, because of these low nitrogen systems, it's actually possible to build a house addition in a harbor waterfront location and actually improve the environment, actually improve water quality. And I'm not sure the planning department's come to terms with that. They're still fighting the old battle that if you make a house bigger, inherently that's going to be bad for the harbor. That's not necessarily true anymore. All I'm going to say to you is that if you guys want to see your harbor, and I know you do, if you want to see surface water quality in the town improve, you need to get engaged. You need to find out what's going on, all right? My contention right now is that the planning department is taking a very backward position, and a position that frankly is not, it's not conducive to improving our harbor, surface water quality, and is not in your or the town's best interest. So I ask that I think you get notice now of applications as people do things around the harbor. Most home additions now, if they need an NRSP, they will be involving a sanitary upgrade, almost all of them, and those sanitary upgrades are low nitrogen systems. I'm not going to say that every single project should be approved, but many of them are good projects and will improve water quality, and pretty much the planning department in almost all cases is taking either a very negative view of them or a very skeptical view of them, and that is affecting what the zoning board is doing. So I would ask you to, begin to look into this and make sure that your interests are being, served by this process.
I think your points are very well taken by all of us because we are very concerned about the harbor waters and all waterways. My question to you would be, why do you think the planning board is taking in this negative attitude? Is it something that they just haven't, thought out? And where does the Natural Resources Department?
Well, wait a minute, it's not the planning board, it's the planning department.
Planning department, I'm
Planning
sorry, excuse me.
I
planning
think
department. But my other attachment to that is the Natural Resources Department. Wouldn't they also have some opinion to work with the planning department to, encourage them from their point of view as well?
Well, it's the planning department that reviews zoning board applications and writes memos to zoning board.
Yes.
And appears at the hearings and speaks. The Natural Resource Department does not get involved in that at all. They're not involved in application review. As to your first question, Susan, I have to admit it's a mystery to me. There are people working for the planning department that are very intelligent. This is not over their heads. And yet they are still taking the position that the board should reject projects, even where the evidence, I think, is pretty strong that there's a net benefit to the project. So I don't really know the
So they're
answer.
staying by the zoning codes and the setbacks as opposed to looking at this other additional rather new idea to the town, because also I believe that the septic systems are not inexpensive, although
Right.
there is a rebate. So that might also be somewhat of the reason that you say there are 14 14
There have been only
upgrades?
14, I think, installed, either installed or ready for installation since January of last year. So that's 12, 13 months now,
That's total and throughout
But
the
it's
whole
not
town.
throughout the whole town.
It's not the septic systems that they're objecting to, it's the
It's the enlargement of the house.
enlargement of the residents
Yeah.
within the wetlands, which
Not-
there are
not
zoning
Not
codes
necessarily
for,
the wetlands. It's
Susan,
just-
not necessarily within the wetlands.
Well,
Okay, it's.
around the
it's
wetlands.
within the setbacks.
Within the
of
setbacks,
wetlands.
right.
And,
And that's why we have zoning codes and,
Do you
Well,
have any
let me just-
examples, do you have any examples
to-
of projects that we might be able to look at? just to
I'll give you
understand
one
this
in a moment. Let me just answer Susan's, address that. I think when you build a larger house, and again, most of the time you're not in the wetlands, but you're near them. You're the one in the wetland setbacks. Larger houses, I would say, have two basic effects. One is visual. That's an aesthetic impact. The other impact really is a water quality impact. When you make a house bigger, the long-standing theory, which is valid, is that if you make a house bigger, you're increasing the number of people that can live in the house. And what's the concern about that? It's wastewater generation. I mean, there's no additional lawn because the house is bigger, it might be less, so you're not worried about additional fertilizer. Your concern is that a larger house has more people using the bathroom means more wastewater, and the wastewater goes into the harbor. So it really is, 90% of the concern is how does it affect surface water quality? And if you offset that expansion, well then, and remember, most of the time we're talking about this, these homes, they're within the town's limits in terms of gross floor area, building coverage, things like that. We're not talking about people who are asking for a house that's larger in GFA than the zoning regulations will allow. They're generally asking for a house addition, but it doesn't meet the wetland setbacks.
And the original house didn't meet the wetland
Right, and
setback.
it's always because the original house is non-conforming.
Yeah.
I'll give.
So you feel that that should be acceptable if they put in a sanitary system?
And not in every case. I mean, I think it depends on the size of the house, but if you can, let me give an example. I don't want to identify the specific project. Rick's asked, can I give an example? All right. So I was before the zoning board recently. Jim will keep quiet because he knows about the project. He was, involved in a revegetation plan. The existing house was proposed to be moved back further from the wetlands. The applicant was going to propose a revegetation plan that would reduce overall clearing on the property. The existing sanitary system is about 50 feet from Three Mile Harbor. The leaching pool sits in groundwater. That system would be moved to a conforming location under the health department rules, meaning 100 feet or more from the surface waters. It would be above ground, out of groundwater, and of course, it would be a low nitrogen system. Scientifically, there's no question. You're not only reducing the load, you're not only reducing the nitrogen load into the harbor by 80% or more. You're eliminating bacterial contamination because the existing septic system is sitting in groundwater close to the harbor. I mean, well within the health department's requirements. So is that scientific evidence that that's a better project for surface water quality? I think so. What was the trade-off? They were proposing 1,000 square feet additional of house area, of GFA. Now, the zoning board's attitude at the hearing was such that the applicant has withdrawn the application. It won't go forward. We didn't wait around for denial. Handwriting was on the wall, the application had been withdrawn.
And how far is would the addition be from the wetlands?
In that case, it was actually, they moved the house back on the property.
A foot and a half?
Accommodate.
About 50
It was a
feet.
foot and a half on one corner.
And about 15 feet from the harbor. There was wetlands to the side and wetlands in front of the harbor, so they moved back about 15 feet from the harbor. House footprint was exactly the same.
They're going up a little bit.
The idea was to build a full second story. The house was a partial second story. The additional floor area was a full second story. So same footprint, moved back, low nitrogen system, reducing clearing on the property, which is to reduce lawn area.
So the new house was not going to be closer to, it wasn't going to be, they didn't need a variance for the 150 feet?
No,
They were still within?
They did. The
They
original-
were building, they would tear down the existing house.
Right.
They build a new house of the same
Same
footprint.
footprint, and then
Right.
build up on the second floor?
Again, the existing house had a partial second story,
Mm-hmm.
so they would build the same footprint, and the second story would be now, it's almost a full second story. That was where the 1,000 square feet came from.
Okay, so second floor we're talking about,
That's
as
right.
opposed to moving it closer to the water? And this was denied?
We've withdrawn it because we believe it would be denied.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's an example. There are many other examples out there, and you don't get to see them if you start to look at these applications that come before you.
Rick,
Well-
have you engaged the town attorneys at all in these types of questions?
No, not today, no.
Okay. And thank you, it was an excellent recap of the
Yeah.
septic requirements. I agree with you. Is there any argument to be made on, you mentioned the old theory of, my family's growing, I'm having child number 4, 5, 6, and 7, I need a bigger house, where nowadays, maybe it's the second homeowner that just wants a bigger living space, and really they're not housing anymore.
Well, by the way, and I'm giving away more information I want to, as I really don't want to identify the applicant. But the project I'm talking about, it's a year-round family with 5 people, 3 kids.
How many more
Yeah.
bathrooms were going to be?
No, same number of bedrooms.
Same
No
number
change-
of bathrooms.
No change in number of bedrooms. No
Is
change
this
in number of
something that
bedrooms.
they
5
may-
people, this was occupied year-round, right now. Bathrooms are being used right now. So, I mean, to me, it was a straightforward application. When that's not good enough, then you have to start to wonder, are your harbors going to get better? Because many of these things will require zoning board approval. If the zoning board takes a negative view of them, we're talking a long time before we improve water quality. And that's, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but that's all I ask is that you begin to examine this, to see what's going on, to look closely at these applications. Some applications may be bad applications, but take them on a case-by-case basis and see what's happening, because right now, the zoning board seems to have a very negative view of almost everything. They're saying if you propose a low nitrogen system as part of your plan, you're using that as an excuse to build your addition. And to me, that's foolhardy. That people are going to improve the environment, whether they're going to be required to or not, by virtue of their addition, that they're going to improve the environment, you work with them. If you deny their project, then there's no upgrade. Then they drop the project, which is what my clients did. Okay?
Thank you very much for
Thanks, Rick.
bringing that to our attention.
You able to stick around a little bit?
Yes, I do have one other thing I want to.
Okay, you're gonna stay flat, great. It won't take long. Okay.
Oh, right.
Ray Hartgen.
Hey, Ray, how are you?
Ray, aren't you the boat builder?
Yes.
Yes.
I recognize you, yeah, you guys do a great job.
Hey,
Right.
Ray,
No, I drove by the museum and
Ray,
I
if
thought
this
about
is
the
a
boat.
boat
Hey,
you build,
I want that boat.
quality's really
Yeah.
slipped here a little bit.
It's like an arc.
Yeah.
Thank you
That's
very
right.
much. I
Some
love
of the
boat
minor
that you
cuts
made.
on this are a little off.
Ah.
You know who I am, where I come from.
Yeah, no, and we want to help you if we can, so.
Well, it's a simple issue. What do you do when you find debris on the beach like I did in the last few days? But before that, there was another set of stairs sitting in front of a neighbor's house, and they came from the other neighbor on this side, broken down in a storm. This neighbor didn't want to deal with it. I informed the people working on this house that it's there, go get it. But that didn't happen. Tide raises up, and I see the stairs floating by the house. So it's a danger to the waterman. It's one of the things you're mostly concerned about. So now I find this on the beach, and I'm worried about the stability of the bulkheads in a really bad storm. But it's also Ed Michael's concern that when you put something like this out into Gardeners Bay, you've got a real menace for the boating people. So as a citizen, I sit there and say, what do I do? I've called Ed Michaels, I called you people, and so I think you should all be aware of it, and there should be some sort of policy. If it was a whale coming up on the beach, they'd find the money to get rid of it. This is a mini whale.
Hey, Ray, where is this?
It's
Right where
33,
Gerard Drive starts.
33
Gerard Drive?
Old,
Yeah, this is where they're
Old
putting the
Fireplace
rocks.
Road.
Okay.
This is where
Beginning
they're
of
putting the
Gerard
rocks
Drive.
for the, you know, by the causeway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
All right.
down there.
Do we know where this came from?
Have absolutely no idea.
Well, hey, Ray, maybe we can do something together
know it
here,
is, yes.
okay? Maybe we can do something with Ed Michaels and with the town highway department to go down, grab this thing, throw it in a truck and
Well, you
get
went down
back
there,
out
and
of
they're
it.
not gonna be able
It
to
just seems
access
to me,
it.
anybody with
This,
any
you
sort of a,
We,
I've thought of many
Yeah.
ways of doing it.
Yeah, you can
Somebody
cut this
can-
the whalers up into
Yeah,
sections
but
and,
Jim,
and
you can't access this by the beach.
why not?
Long reach access?
it's a real low spot here. And it's, you'd have to get it, you have to pull it out by boat.
Any
You
thoughts
might-
on how to get it,
It's
Ray?
real dead low, yeah. That thing's about 35 feet long.
But
You
what
could
do
probably
you say for
tow it
most
out
part,
with
you
a
can
boat at
drive?
the right tide.
Somebody came by
can't cut
today,
it up
knocked
and
on
take
my
it out in
door
pieces?
and said, where is it? And he drove his truck right up to the bulkhead, and he could look, hit somebody down on the beach, so somebody was inspecting it. With
You
the
know about
intent-
that, Bill? What-
No,
what-
I went down there, and looked at it. And, you know, we should really try and, the town, we suggested the town take a look at it. They did,
The town
said-
did look at it, and
and
they're not
they don't want to
interested.
do it, so.
My question is, where is this in relation to Driftwood Shores?
Yeah, we had an issue down there with who owns the property.
I have no idea where Driftwood Shores is.
There's a
It's
sub.
just further.
No, it's not by Driftwood Shores, that's the other way.
Yeah, but it's not that far from here.
Driftwood's at the end of.
Almost to the end of
Fireplace.
Driftwood is,
Gardeners.
Yeah,
Driftwood
but
is
we're
down
by
this
Gerard
way.
Drive.
That
We're on
that is Gerard Drive.
No, but we're on Gerard
Yeah,
Drive.
Yeah.
this is
That's
the
not
very,
Fireplace, that's further north.
Yeah,
yeah,
Hey, Jim,
this is where Gerard Drive
you know,
starts,
Patrick's
but,
doing work down there.
I'll get in and look at it.
You know,
Ray,
maybe he
we may
could
be
reach
able
and
to-
grab it
We
for
may
us.
be able to finagle something here where it disappears. We don't need to ask how it disappeared.
That,
And Do you have a particular use that you had in mind for this piece of crap?
Absolutely.
And where would you like it?
Right.
I have a gardener who
Another
may
book
want to post
project.
That's the
a
thing.
mailbox.
No, but we'll see if we can get it out of there.
Okay.
I agree with you. You know, this thing, if it's floating around and somebody hits it,
You got,
yeah.
Okay.
okay?
All right, thanks,
So-
Ray.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Buy me a few chains for my chainsaw, 'cause you gotta go through about 6 otherwise
That thing's a mess.
barnacles.
What's the, Ray, what's the address on that again? Is it 35?
33 Fireplace Road.
Fireplace Road.
You know, we don't have,
Drive doesn't,
we don't have
Highway
deep,
Department?
we don't have
until you get past double houses on.
33 Old Fireplace Road.
That's east of Tree
Yeah, southeast.
I don't know.
Yeah, southeast.
Now, you'd have, you know, if you get it down where they're working with the rocks, they can just pick it up and throw it
If
on.
Jim's willing, you know, with his
We can-
expertise, he'll get it done.
I know.
Okay, we don't have any new business tonight, believe it or not. We covered beaches already. We're gonna move down to roads and access to property of Stephen Lloyd, west of Six Pole Highway.
Where are we going?
There's a rather colorful past, I think, on this property and some of the surrounding properties that have been acquired by the town. And some of the trustee roads have been impacted by some of the activities there over the years. And Mr. Lloyd has reached out to us to try and help him gain access to his property. But I believe the first thing we have to do is clarify the trustee ownership of a couple of the old paper roads in there.
Unnamed
So I think
roads.
that's what we're on the trail to do, is to start to explore how to sort out some of the ambiguities associated with the roads. And then once we can get that clarified, we have an opportunity to discuss it further with Mr. Lloyd. Rick, I don't know if you're involved with this property or not, but if you maybe want to weigh in, but we're trying to approach this in a way where we can get it straightened out.
Richard Whalen, actually now I am speaking as attorney. I do represent the owners of a lot off Six Pole Highway, Stephen and Mary Lloyd. They bought their property in the early 1990s, and at the time that they did it, they got title insurance because they had access to Six Pole Highway over an access easement granted to them by the town trustees. And the history of that access easement, as you know, is good. There's a long history there. But the bottom line is, when they bought their property, they very, very reasonably thought that they had road access. And a few years ago, when the town reached out to them, the town was interested in buying their property. I don't know if the town still is, but they were interested at one point. But they could never reach an agreement because the town said, well, you're landlocked. You don't have access anymore today. So the town would never offer them true fair market value. So I'm curious to see what you guys, can do to help them. I did talk to Arlene, and Arlene, I think, has gone through your files.
In Mr. Carrillo's file and in yours, Rick and Susan, is a letter to the trustees before any of this happened, asking the trustees if they owned it, the road. This is before the developer, before anything, before he bought it.
Before the easement.
And then it went to the roads committee, and the roads committee determined that it was theirs. This went from like December 1987 to March 88. You all have a copy.
Yes.
Maybe Chris or Rick can take a look at that
Yeah,
letter.
Arlene, we have referred to
Yeah.
that document and other
Yeah.
documents, and we feel that there probably is a reasonable claim of ownership by the trustees that predates the whole subdivision problem and foreclosure problems. But we need a little bit of time to sort that out internally. But we are on the trail,
Okay.
literally.
That's-
And we've met with Chris on it, and we are trying to get to a positive conclusion to this. So
And
we're
they
hoping in
have-
the next 2
They have
weeks, 30
title
days.
insurance?
So,
They do have title insurance.
So their
That's where I
title
was gonna go
insurance
with
company
this.
should
Yeah.
pick up the tab on whatever litigation for
Problem is, it's
this.
30 years ago, there's no appreciation, and the title insurance would not come close to the present value of the property.
right, but they should be on the hook to litigate the issue potentially, regardless of if it's up to what they insured.
Right.
So if they insured a $30,000 purchase at that time,
Right.
arguably their attorney should be on the hook to litigate that. So my point was going to be the same as Jim's, was we appreciate your invitation to intercede. I think we're going to look into it, probably sit down with John or with whoever at the town, but ultimately, it might behoove you to go back to the title insurance company and say, hey, look, you guys are on the hook here to litigate this at least up until, the value of
Right,
what was
right.
insured. So I don't know I guess the homeowners came to you kind of outside of
Yeah,
title insurance? The
right.
Title insurance company didn't come to you, right?
No, the homeowners did.
I'd like to
Or
see
the
you
property owners did.
try to get them on the hook a little more. In my experience and background with title, this is a classic case where their attorney should be working on this one. So we're definitely going to get into it and hopefully come to a good conclusion, but maybe title will pay for it for them.
All right.
Because your invitation to intercede is potentially an invitation to litigate as well.
Right, that's right.
So we'll see how this
All right,
goes with the
okay.
town.
If you can, join forces with Chris a little bit to help us
Okay.
with any historic research, I know you're quite
Yeah,
knowledgeable.
and I did actually talk at one point to the title company, but I didn't really press them on the issue. We were hoping we would have another resolution with the neighbor in front, but that didn't work out.
So we're gonna try to move forward with this, and we'll keep you posted, and if you have anything to share with Chris, it'd be helpful.
Appreciate it.
All right, good, thanks.
Thanks, Rick.
Now, what stands between that property and a deeded road? Is it
Our trail and other preserved town property.
our trail, like a
Yeah,
Paper road.
A
paper
lot of
road?
paper road,
Okay.
unnamed trustee roads.
So we know we own that road, or that's questionable?
We feel what we do. There was a person that bought a tract of property, issued us a quitclaim deed, and then the property was foreclosed on.
Foreclosed on.
And it
Okay.
clouded
Now
our
they're saying
title,
that
or
because it
our
was
ownership.
foreclosed on, that
What was
that
that?
deed is-
Was
that deed is
quitclaim
null and
deed,
void.
was it filed with the county?
It was, but it was
Yeah.
filed after the mortgage on that piece of property. So that quitclaim deed was wiped out with the foreclosure. But what that failed to take into account was that we had the property or owned the property arguably prior to
Prior
the
to-
quitclaim deed
I
on the
mean,
Dongan and
1686.
our properties.
Okay.
So
Just to
we feel that their
reassure
analysis
the
doesn't go far
client.
back enough in our ownership.
So part of the.
Would
prob-
latches come into play here where that we never took action on our ownership here, and
Yeah, there's a
therefore
whole,
could it be?
there's a whole
No.
chain of
Interpreted.
letters, no.
Okay.
Chain
We've
of,
got a very
from
detailed list of
1987 to 2014, I think was the last time where
Would,
Diane McNally and John Courtney wrote a letter
would we be taking
verifying that.
would we be taking a big chance by issuing an easement to this property owner?
Well, you're gonna be,
We already have.
yeah.
Okay, so
We're
I
gonna
don't
revisit this
understand
with
if,
the town.
That property eventually was, that once foreclosed upon, was then sold to the town. So the town is claiming ownership to
It's
that piece of
claiming
property
ownership.
now.
So
after
this
the
guy's
foreclosure.
thing is landlocked.
So really, we need to sit down with the town and go over the history of our ownership of the property and determine whether or not litigation is going to
Right.
ensue,
Reasonable approach.
if we want to pursue this.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
We were
the
doing
the grant of access easement was April 22nd of 1992. And it was filed May 4th, Suffolk County.
So we'll keep the board apprised.
All right.
Hopefully we'll have some news to report in the next 2 weeks to 30 days.
Okay, let's move on. 3 Mile Harbor, we have a mooring application for 39 Sammons Beach Road up for discussion.
I actually went up there today.
Yeah, I've looked at the pin drop that Arlene did, and it is in an area that Barley was referring to tonight, where we do a great deal of scallop seeding, and some years have been extremely abundant, like the year before this past season, where many members of the community that like to go scalloping and enjoy the water experience one of the best years of scalloping in a long time. We also, Susan, John Alden, and I did work with Barley seeding oysters in that area in the corner there. And I know there's, hard clams in there and other seeding activities going on. So it is one of our most productive shellfish areas in trustee waters. The other thing about this application that's interesting is they do have ownership on the bay side as well as the harbor side. And the outer area is a nice sand beach. I don't think there's any rocks in the area. So the applicant does have an option to put a mooring on the Gardiner's Bay side. And with the summer winds prevailing really south-southwest, it's a pretty protected anchorage spot. So my personal take on it is that's a better spot for a mooring rather than in one of our most productive areas where Barley's saying we need to get our habitat back and so on and so forth.
Have you had an opportunity to discuss it with the applicant or the proposed applicant?
I have, this is the first
Okay.
opportunity to really speak to everyone. Maybe that's a great idea, Brian, to reach out to them
Sure.
and say hi and let them know the background of the area and why
Well,
the Bayside may be a
The
better
thing is,
choice.
he claims that he currently anchors it there all season as it is.
Is this the oversized
It's
Yeah.
a
It's not-
29-foot,
29.
So what is the
25.
measurement requirements
25.
on the other side of, in Gardner's Bay?
I'm not sure, we should look
Is
into that
there,
as well.
is
No,
there
I
a
saw the
diff,
boat,
is,
where it's
may there
going.
be a difference in
I've
the
seen, there
requirement?
definitely are some boats of that length anchored on the bayside.
Right.
So I have seen larger boats with moorings there that I believe have been permitted and
Both
checked by
lines.
Chief Michaels. The other challenge is, if we're now going to approve an oversized vessel in a productive shellfish area, we're also setting a precedent.
Right.
That's my
Where-
concern.
Well,
too.
that's why I
Exactly.
said,
You
why,
start to
if,
see
if it's
numerous
equally or better on the bay side, and there is no, going to be any negative
Size,
impact
negative.
from the
even
length.
according to our rules and regulations, this thing should go in a large boat mooring area.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And my
I would-
concern is if we start granting moorings in front of people's properties,
We're gonna be
who's not
faced,
gonna
Yeah,
want
This
it?
is also
They're
very,
all gonna
I
want it.
did go up there this evening, and it's very low water table at this juncture, at this time of year, perhaps, or the hour. But on either side, there are signs that say wetlands, preserve.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that it should be left untouched.
Undisturbed,
And
yeah.
let a larger boat like this go on the other
Right.
side. If you're saying it's more protected in
has
the
his- he
summertime.
has
It's a
his-
good spot for summer anchorage, not in the fall and winter, but in the summer, we have south-southwest prevailing winds.
And that option that you're referring to, is that in line with what Bill said about where the larger boats are?
No, that's our
allowed.
mooring field in the center of 3 Mile Harbor.
Right.
Deep water hold, the 11-foot mean low water hold.
So
in
we're
the middle of
making,
the harbor.
we'd be making a consent, we would be making a
Concession.
concession either
Exception.
case, and maybe
Well,
setting
we
a bad
don't-
precedent.
Yeah.
I think he
Yeah.
would have to get,
Yeah.
he would have to apply to the town for a mooring permit on the.
Gardner's
On the
Bay.
bay side. Yeah, that's a town permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, very commonly
Right.
undertaken. I think it's a better choice.
And we have a picture of the boat.
Are there
this-
currently moorings there on that
We-
side?
We
Rick?
did an
On the
extensive
bay side?
Yeah.
I think there's a
work on
couple out
setting
there.
up the
front
large
of
boat
people's
mooring
houses.
area. And the
On the
reason
bay
we
side.
picked 25 foot was
Not in the harbor.
not terribly arbitrary. It's that a boat larger than 25 feet is more than likely to have, sleeping accommodations and stuff on it.
Right.
So that was the call we made, and we've been sticking to that for
I think we should
I
stick
10
think we should
years,
stay
yeah.
where we are,
Yeah.
otherwise we open the door to larger boats, and
Well,
that
it's
would be
gonna
a
be,
very unattractive.
it's gonna be like,
More,
we have
more mooring
applications for
requests.
making an exception to the dock regulations. Once the
Yeah.
first one comes in, the next 11 are there the next
Exactly.
day.
I did notice today, there seems to be a rack. I'm not sure exactly because I wasn't paying attention, but there's like a horseshoe rack someplace along that side on the inside of the waters, not on the Gardner's Bay side. And I don't know if they need a permit for that. It's to hold, I believe it's to hold a boat or a
It's not a duck
kayak.
blind shell?
I'm sorry?
It's not a duck blind frame?
No, no, it had like two cups, so I believe it would be a boat would be,
Depends on
Do you
where.
recall where it was?
I know, you
Property?
know what, I'll go back because
Yeah,
it's all
might have been on your
preserved
land,
there.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I drove around looking for the boat launch and I mean, I took a bunch
If
of
it's
pictures.
below the grass line, they would definitely need a permit.
So how do we want to proceed on this? He has submitted an application.
Yeah, I think what he's asking for is for us to waive our rules.
Right, so I think one of us should reach out to him and explain the background. I mean, I'm happy to give him a call, or if someone else wants to, but,
He's a new homeowner as
yeah,
of
I'm happy to
September.
reach out to him, and explain to him what's going on with the background of the area and why we would make this recommendation, and
That is boat belongs with
So you
the
want to hold off?
big
on-
boats?
bigger boats are on the bay side.
Okay, good.
We could probably give, the large boat mooring area, we could possibly get him,
Yeah.
He's in Harbor Marina, he doesn't need the large boat grid. I think he may have young children.
He has a
and
slip at
that's why
Harbor
he's been
Marina.
asking
He wants
This
a-
is just for his convenience.
Yeah,
He
this
has a mooring.
is a weekender spot. This is
Yeah,
a
he just
weekender.
doesn't come over on the weekend and maybe have a family.
So,
on it.
on nice weekends, the bayside's beautiful,
Everybody
light
would like
south
to have
wind.
the boat right up at their front door.
And just so I understand correctly, if he did have a 25-foot or smaller boat, the trustees' policy is to grant the mooring for these people in their backwater, or no?
Maybe. It depends on the topography.
We haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe that
there
was.
are boats that are moored up there.
There
There's
are?
some small
They're
ones
moored?
up there, I think.
Well, they're over by Hands
they're
Creek
anchored,
ramp.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah, by
couple
the
over
ramp,
by the
yeah.
ramp.
That's been kind of a small
Which
is a
boat.
totally
boats
different area,
anchored there
though.
for years.
Chris, this is just a real, you know.
Yeah,
kind
but
of
this,
sacred
he
shellfish
wants this
area.
right in
Right,
his,
I-
at his
Right in front of his
backyard.
house.
You were
Yeah.
granting moorings to all these
But he's-
homeowners
he's
if they're
got
both
a
slip.
Right, right.
That's not the case.
No, it's
You walk
possible.
right out, so
Okay.
I walked right
It's not-
out
it's not up-
and photographed right through, and either side, he has access to his boat if he's on Gardeners,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
under,
And he has a slip at the
I
marina?
mean, I can't
Yes.
recall.
yes, Harbor
Rick,
Marina.
I
Really, he
don't
could just
recall
anchor up for a
Rick
weekend if he's
ever
out for a
granting
couple days.
There's no mooring permits
to
down there?
anybody on their
Some
own,
people just don't
you know,
have enough.
by their
Privilege.
properties.
There's a couple on the
because-
east side of 3 Mile that are quite legacy.
Yeah, there's some that were there for,
Yeah.
for 30 years.
Yeah, these go back a
like-
ways.
there's like
But
4 or
north of
5 in that
Shagwam,
corner.
north of Shagwam Marina, on the east side, there's a few private moorings, and south of Dave's Lane.
But,
There's a couple.
but nothing yet here.
No,
This
not,
is clear, so I think we need to leave it.
well, I was gonna make a point. In Edgartown, at Martha's Vineyard, Edgartown manages probably the largest mooring field on the East Coast.
Wow.
And they do a very professional job. They have a temporary or transient mooring area, they have a seasonal mooring area, and then they have a very beautiful shellfish habitat reserve area with no mooring. They used to allow free anchorage, and people would anchor their boats and go up to Boston, where a lot of people live and such, and the boats were blowing up on the beach and things like that, and they discouraged free anchoring now, and they expanded the bigger mooring field so it's safer, more secure, and do like a more professional management plan. So if anyone wants to check out Edgartown, it's a great reference project, because they have an excellent shellfish program and a really well-done mooring program that generates some revenue for the community.
Could
and
be a road
manages
trip.
The environment.
Why not?
They have a nice website too, so you can do it online if you want.
Are you gonna go on the trip?
No, I was thinking
I haven't been there in a while. but
So
It's beautiful.
clarify, we're gonna take no action at this point.
Correct.
We have a conversation.
Yes.
With
Yes.
with the applicant, okay?
And Arlene, if you could just email me the contact info, please. Thank you, Arlene.
All right. Chris, I'm gonna need your help on the next one. This is the Zweig
Okay.
permit. This is actually the permit and the agreement, the settlement agreement.
Are we done with the beaches? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have a copy of it here? I believe we do.
I have the copy.
I can pass this over. You got it?
There you go.
Arlene gave me one somewhere. Oh, I have it, I have
You
it.
have it?
Thanks.
No, you don't take mine back.
Okay, these were sent out to everybody via email. We did have a executive session with Brian last week.
We did?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, we all got noticed.
I did not. I never got that email.
Trustee
I sent the email.
Building.
I can resend.
I wasn't able to attend either, but I knew I was gonna be away, but I did receive the email. Brent, is this something we wanna discuss a little bit now? Is that?
I mean, we
What do you
can
want, Chris?
discuss this and,
Yeah, we can discuss.
yeah, because we're gonna,
It's on the agenda to potentially vote on it if you guys
Right.
decide to, so.
What I took away, as a layman's purview of the document that was sent around was that Mrs. Zweig didn't want to apply for a trustee permit to access the revetment. She wanted to just give us notice. Is that the fundamental change? Is that she doesn't want to have to do an annual application of
And
a
that's been
permit
eliminated from the
as
trustee permit.
Well,
Mrs. Rayner did
No,
tonight?
what the goal on this thing, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, what the goal on this thing is, we had more or less, this has been settled to a degree. We have a settlement offer on the table. What they wanted is the trustee permit to read basically exactly the same as the settlement and have the language the same and no differences. Now, what that does do is it makes this property somewhat exclusive as compared to other properties. But recognize this is part of a long litigation. It's an opportunity to end the litigation. We have got the big things that we have gotten out of this is that the applicant or the the person litigating this has accepted the ambulatory beach grass line, which we recognized was probably one of the most important aspects of this case. And now what we're asking here, for the length of the time that this DEC permit lasts, she's gonna be able to do kind of what the DEC permit and the village permit say she can do. It in no way does it sort of degrade the trustees' beaches or in any way impact us. And one thing that does occur in this trustee permit that is a little different is she would have to apply to us before her work is done to cross over our beaches to do that work. So we're not really losing anything here, is the way I look at it.
But I thought I read that there wasn't gonna be any permit, there was just gonna be a notice of commencement.
Yes.
Well, we have,
Correct.
no,
No new permit.
for
No
for
new permit.
restoration.
But she would have to have a permit for the snow fence annually,
Which-
yes?
Which if she
And she's
replaced it,
agreeable to that.
if she replaced it, if it lasts more than a year, no, you don't need to come back to us.
Right, we've already issued her a permit for the sand fencing.
And that was basically
It
the
just doesn't
requirement
match
we wanted, that she
Right.
asked for
What's
that
in the
permit.
agreement, so we need to modify our permit to them.
Yeah, and that's what this
For-
represents.
For sand fencing or access or both?
For
No.
sand fencing.
So that's the permit we're gonna be issuing her, is a sand
Right,
fencing
and
permit.
then we also have to decide if we are accepting this litigation agreement.
May I interrupt you for a moment? I have the copy of the proposed trustee permit, and I know that our attorney did, when he spoke to us, he feels that this is the right way to go, but I have a question on the trustee permit. It says that the permit is to construct a new sand-covered rock revetment. A new sand-covered rock revetment.
That's already been
There's already a
done.
pre-existing
Right,
revetment there,
that's
so we're not
dating
talking
back
about
to
a
the-
new one,
Correct.
another,
It's
okay.
dating back to the one that's already been done on
Okay.
the original
All right,
permits.
this is the, all right, just wanted to clarify that we weren't talking about yet another revetment.
What, didn't she replace the stairs as well? Did she put a new staircase in there?
I think that's why we have to give her access, so that she can put that stairway in now, or cross over.
Stairway's in there.
Yeah, it's in.
But we're giving
Stairway's
her
there.
access to.
We give everybody access.
Right, but isn't that something that she
No,
has to
the
come to
access
us
would
for?
be if she has to replenish sand,
Okay,
The access would be on our beaches.
right,
which we basically,
we're saying yes.
yeah, we,
And we've given her an application for the stairs. The new stairs that were built.
I think the stairs were part of that whole
They were part of the
litigation.
revetment.
Yeah, they were part of the revetment.
I have the email, and it was sent by Francis to everyone, and I can forward it again. If anyone wants to see it.
but do you,
I got the email that had the attachment for the settlement agreement,
Yeah, that's the one.
but it didn't say anything about holding an executive session.
No, that's not what we're looking for, just the attachment of the settlement
Right, right.
agreement, correct, Francis?
I got that email. I didn't get
Yeah.
anything about an executive session.
No, there was nothing about that.
But there was something, I got something for the executive
Yeah, an
session.
email went out for.
Yeah, either you had the wrong,
session.
there was the wrong email for Susan, or you overlooked it, Susan, because I think everybody was notified of the
Yeah,
executive
I
session,
see
with
it
the
here.
exception of you.
Yeah.
So what Brian and I did was went back and forth on the permit language to limit the precedential effect of this, because the concern among the trustees was any other homeowner going and saying, we no longer need a trustee permit, and use this as evidence. So what we did was we narrowly tailored this permit to use this settlement language so that it's extremely clear that this permit is a result of this settlement agreement. And the effect of it is only because of the settlement agreement. So we spoke about that in executive session. And I think in the beginning, I know myself, maybe Jim and others had the same concerns as Rick and several of what you seem to be showing now. And I think at the end, we realized that ultimately, for a homeowner to try to avoid getting, the trustee permit would require them to go through this wide, scale litigation.
Yeah,
So we
spend a
just
couple
don't
$100,000
see that
to
happening.
save $100 on a
yeah,
permit.
Yeah.
it didn't seem to be a real-world issue.
Right. And although it may not seem much to some, it is to others. And I mean, there's gotta be something, because, yeah, you can't just do the work first and then argue whether you need our permission later. I think that was important, at least in my perspective. It
If
just
you
didn't.
open this up and you turn to the next page, it describes that she will have to have a permit in place. I think the part of the conversation we had with Mr. Matthews was that this not set a precedent that the neighbors can also do the same, so that she is still, it's incumbent upon her to still get permits for various different things like sand replenishment, beach grass replanting.
And not only that, but that she would
Cetera.
also have to adhere to the New York State DEC permit, which, as Jim mentioned, is only in effect for maybe another, what is it, 4
Well,
years?
it has a lifespan. Whatever that lifespan is, it comes to an end in the DEC. What happened on this one, I think it's unfortunate that we got into a litigious situation here, but I think some of our own posturing may have helped gotten us where we are. And it's been expensive. This has gone on for a very long time. It's been expensive for this board. This individual, she had the luxury of her title insurance company was in some error on her title. So they've picked up the tab on this.
The legal fees.
We don't have that. We're paying the tab on this, so.
But most importantly, again, it brings in the grass line
Yeah.
as the property.
That's the most valuable thing about this whole settlement, is
And it brings this
restores the
property
grass line.
in line with all the
All of the
neighboring
other
properties.
neighboring properties.
And as I recall, her property is set back, where the others are extended onto the beach. Hers is
The
back.
revetment is back.
The revetment's
a little further.
back a little further. The
Yeah.
beach grass line
Yes.
should
May
be
I
somewhat the
just
same.
clarify something with everyone? So in paragraph 4, section C, Chris, if you could just help me with this. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained herein, to the extent that any sand replenishment, beach grass planting, or repair or maintenance of the revetment or dune fencing require access over any trustee property, including without limitation through the Georgia Beach access point, SWAG shall be required to seek and obtain a beach access permit from the trustees for such purposes. So that, there is a permit required.
And if you go back to the permit, they carried some of that language
Okay.
through into the
Right.
permit, so they
Okay,
would read the same.
All right, so C is that there is an access permit?
Correct, so what that's stating is, in the event they need to send people, machinery, what have you, down the
Right.
trustee beach, that's they're going to be required to get an access permit if they want to go
So it's
into
more
their
than
own
just a
yard.
notice of commencement, it's actually a permit?
In the event they need to use the beach
Sure.
to do any of that work, yes.
Essentially, they're not asking for the actual placement of sand to have a permit.
Right.
From my taking the temperature of the room right now, I think there's several trustees that are just seeing this for the first time and really starting to kind of understand and digest it. This has been a long time coming, obviously 5, 6 years of litigation. We don't need to vote on it tonight, maybe
I
digest it.
recall
And
this.
Brian
I
has done a
recall
really
this
nice
being a
job, so.
unique animal in our previous discussions.
Well, I think what is important here, guys, this has been going on. We finally have a deal that's on the table that I think we could accept. What I really would hate to do is, if we're gonna table this, I would not like to table it any more than one meeting, because what is happening here is the time difference between when we last talked about this, everybody here seems to be forgetting what was talked about the time before. We can go on forever.
Yeah.
And just keep in mind, every month that this goes by, we are fielding some bills from our attorneys to address this.
Yeah.
We're gonna, you know,
I agree with you.
But we're
the
also
legal-
losing the trust of the other
Yeah,
side.
I think it's time for us
Yeah.
to settle
Yeah.
this.
No, I think it's,
I'm happy
I'd
now
like
to
to do
see
this in a
this.
timely manner.
No,
I felt very
understanding that a
confident.
permit is required makes me feel a lot better. That was what I was a little unsure of, and it just kind of all came together for me. And I do think the benefits of the agreement outweigh the downside of a uniqueness to this project. So I'm comfortable with it. I think it's in the public's best interest, and it's in the trustees' best interest. Given what this board kind of inherited with the project, I think it's
I agree.
best case outcome.
I feel very confident after our last meeting when the attorney was
Yeah.
there and spoke to us, and we, asked him questions and things. And Chris, you feel very comfortable as well with,
Yeah, of course, Brian's been on this for years now, and I'm sort of tertiary
Right.
to that. But Brian and I went back and forth on this permit language, and we both feel really comfortable that this is going to protect us, and it's the best way to move forward. So,
so
yeah,
I,
I'm comfortable with it.
I'm happy to take a vote if anybody would like to make a motion to that effect, or,
Does anyone want to make a motion? Well, let's do the I guess we should do the agreement first and then the permit?
Yeah, I agree. I would do them separately. Motion or resolution to accept the permit and one to accept the agreement separately.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the agreement as it's written.
and I will second that.
I don't know what the date is on this new agreement. So I'd like it referenced to something here, because there's been several versions of this.
No, I've got two versions.
The latest version.
There's no date
Have it in
on
front of
it.
me.
Okay, the latest version.
And Susan, you second it?
I second it, yes.
Okay, let's go around the table.
Can I just ask you, I have two here, one from our last,
The one you got tonight is the one that,
yeah, well, I have three folders here, that's why. I'm sort of, I had, this is from January 14th, so that cannot be, that was from the last, so it has to be this,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Okay.
okay. Start with Susan.
Aye.
Aye.
Rick? Jim?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Dell?
Yes.
Okay. Trustee permit. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the trustee permit by Mrs. Weig
Second.
as complete.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay. Looks like we're done with this, Chris.
Wow.
That was a load off
Yeah.
the shoulders.
I feel our trustee
Congratulations.
bank account getting lighter.
I think they still need to accept the permit as it's been rewritten, so I don't know if it's 100% finished, but
Okay.
Oh,
we've gone down that road.
Still have a problem with it.
All right, committee reports. Education,
yes.
balloon legislation.
Balloon legislation, I'm pleased, thrilled to say that I have completed my presentations for East Hampton Town Board, the East Hampton Litter and Recycling Committee, and we've had a lot of press about this in the newspapers. It's been on, it's been in Newsday, East Hampton Patch, it was on WCBS News Radio. Sag Harbor Express did an article about it, and of course the trustees, there was an article, I think by Sag Harbor Express, that we had voted unanimously to support the intentional release of balloons. There seems to be also a little confusion even now when with people thinking that this means that if you have a balloon, the town is going to fine you or $1,000 and penalize you, and that's not the case. So I want to state for the record that the intentional release of balloons refers to Suffolk County legislation, which currently permits the release of up to 25 balloons per day. Every 24 hours, a person can release up to 25 balloons, whether they're made of latex or mylar. And latex in its natural form is biodegradable, but when it is turned into a commercial product, such as a balloon, it is not biodegradable. And mylar comes from DuPont Chemical Company. It is plastic, and it comes from basically fossil fuels. It's a polyester resin, and it's stretched plastic. And those, also, there's no second, these are single-use products, and they are harming our waterways and marine animals and aviary and wildlife. So I went to the town board, I gave everyone a brochure full of information, documentation about balloons, and also the list of the supporters that we have in our community. I have probably, I'm going to say 25 to 30 letters of support from organizations and businesses and individuals, including Assemblyman Fred Thiel and County Legislator Bridget Fleming, both of whom said that they will take it to their colleagues to see about it getting passed. Next week, I'll go to the Energy Sustainability Group. They want to, I'm going to do a presentation for them, and then from there, I'm going to go to Southampton Town Board. So I feel that this is the first step in the right direction to help clean up our beautiful town, waterways, get this stuff out of the water, and help our wildlife and help the community. You know, we find too many balloons on the beach. As you heard from Colleen Henn from Surfrider, Long Island chapter, I think our last, in the 15 pickups that she has done with Surfrider this past year, about 600 and some odd tons of garbage have been picked up, and hundreds of balloons, hundreds of them. So I'm very pleased with this legislation moving forward, and I think the town will, on February 7th, I'm announcing it here, so everybody who wants to come, February 7th, the town board meeting will address the issue of balloons, this proposed legislation, and people are invited to speak. So if you would like to come and support this, since you already voted on it, that would be terrific. I'd love to see you. So that's there. I also gave all of the town board members one of our balloon T-shirts, which I added to the bin. The Rysam Scholarship Fund, I paid for those. So hopefully we'll see some of our town board members wearing the balloon T-shirt. The town styrofoam ban, we did discuss it at our last meeting, and there was a letter that was drafted, but it was not signed, we did not vote about it. However, the town of East Hampton did vote that very night on the styrofoam ban, and it will take place as of April 22nd. And the ban is essentially, there will be no more takeout styrofoam cups. And World Health Organization did some research about it. It is considered now a carcinogen. It does not biodegrade, styrofoam, and here, this is the local law of polystyrene items, and I just want to read to you because I know you wanted to be specific about what the actual ban was going to be before we were ready to vote on this. I still would like us to tell the town in a letter that we support this, even though they've passed it, just so we're on record. But the legislative intent is polystyrene foam, commonly referred to as styrofoam, is a petroleum-based plastic, which means fossil fuels, there you go, drilling of fossil fuels, made from the styrene monomer. Styrene has been identified as a potential human carcinogen by the United States Department of Health and Human Services and the International Agency for Research of Cancer. The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, will have all set styrene exposure levels, EPA drinking water, FDA bottled water, and OSHA workplace air. It is used in a number of common food container products. So right now, nothing will be put into styrofoam containers to take out, no more coffee cups. It will still be in our grocery stores with meat packaging because that's how it comes, and also for our fisheries, styrofoam will be used for fisheries who are going to package the fish and ship it out. But I think it's a very important, good move that the town took to eliminate harmful products that are single use. So our particular town legislation is no food service establishment or store shall possess, sell, or offer for use single-service articles that consist of expanded polystyrene, including but not limited to providing food in single-service articles that consist of expanded polystyrene. And it goes on, but that's basically it. So I think it's, you know, since it can't biodegrade, it's in the garbage, it's in our dumps, and it's just going to sit there forever and ever and ever. And it is a carcinogen. So I don't know if anybody would like to vote on voting that we.
Anyone have any comment on it?
Well, Susan, do you have a resolution that you've prepared that
I just,
outlines what your?
well, the letter that was created, I passed around at our last.
It's a letter of support.
A letter of
Oh, okay,
support,
okay.
just to be on record with the town that we do as trustees, since it is, you know, we're concerned about the environment. The letter that Francis signed with, you know, we have a watermark that says draft, because it did not go out, and we wanted everyone to read it, but it says simply, Dear Supervisor Van Scoyac and members of the town board, the East Hampton Town Trustees fully support the ban on polystyrene, commonly known by the trademark name Styrofoam, food containers in our town. We hope the proposed legislation is passed and that other East End communities will follow, as single-use materials are polluting our coastal and marine waters, landscapes, and harming our fragile and encumbered marine and wildlife. Thank you for your consideration of this important proposed legislation. Basically simple.
Yeah, very nice.
So could we vote on this to make a motion to support the town in the ban of styrene?
I'll make a motion to support.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank
All
you.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Okay, next. You can start on the schools.
Okay, thanks. Susan and I had the opportunity today to go to the high school and meet with Aubrey Peterson's class, an environmental.
Awareness
after-
group.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
What's the name?
That's all right. You're not going to keep doing that, are you?
No.
Oh. So we had a really good time. The high school kids were really interested, and they asked some really good questions. Ashley from Barley's department came with us. She's becoming a regular. She goes on tour with us. And again, the kids were really, really interested. And it gave us an opportunity to tell them about the government end of what we do, and of course, the environmental initiatives. And I really enjoyed it, and we look forward to possibly reaching out to the Amagansett Elementary School. But I have to say, of all the schools, I find it's just a different level when you get into the high school. These are young adults who may very well go into, a career with regards to, our waters and our environment. So, it was a good time.
It was
Really enjoyed
wonderful.
Yep.
And Ashley did a spectacular job.
She
does a
did.
PowerPoint presentation all about the shellfish hatchery, who they are, what they do, how the oysters impact the waters, and inviting the kids, if they wanted to come down to visit the shellfish hatchery and become an oyster farmer themselves. So she's always a wonderful asset to what we do for the education. Brian is excellent at doing the history of the trustees and telling the kids what we do and how we do it and what concerns us, and they were terrific, the kids. And then I do the balloon thing. And
Oh, I mentioned the ricem. Yeah, give us an
yes,
opportunity.
I mentioned the ricem and also told them about the T-shirts and encouraged them that perhaps they would like to enter to perhaps one of them be awarded our ricem scholarship fund. So
Yeah, I really like that aspect of it because we, personally reached out to 20-some-odd kids. So, and then we'll remind Aubrey and, the other teachers when it comes time. But I suspect we'll get more people, young students, writing ricem papers as it relates to the trustees and what East Hampton means to them. It was really a really good time, so thank you.
we'll do it again next week.
Give me a little time.
I know. I also want to let you know that CCOM had invited me to be a judge at the science fair at Montauk School this past weekend. I had a great time. I invited Ann Welker from the Southampton Trustees. She is the first female in 400 years ever to be elected to a trustee position. So we went together, I brought her, and it was wonderful. There must have been 75 or 100 students, and they all come up with their own creative, innovative science. They have to do a hypothesis and problem solving and results, and they have to have resources that are age appropriate. So our group was third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. And it's really, I have to say, the science teacher who does the program, Joe, and I'm going to pronounce his
Joe
name.
Malave.
Yes, Malave. He is terrific. And then there's also Todd Brunn. We were in their classroom initially, getting set, and figuring out how to vote, because this is not just, it was amazing how much work goes into this. I was astounded. And so I did a balloon presentation there. We ended up giving away a onesie to a new teacher who has a new baby. So that was fun. But I thoroughly enjoyed the day. It was a full-day event, so I hope next year they invite me back and I get to do it again, because the kids are amazingly creative and innovative, and the thought process and how they solve the problem of the concept that they come up with. I mean, they're not given these assignments. They have to actually come up with an idea, prove it, do the research, and then they tell you. You know, we went from one to the next, and each child, you know, you ask them, what made you think of this? How did you come to this result and that result? And it was fun, a lot of fun. And so I thank Joe Malave and the school, and I met Mr. Perna. He's the principal. Very lovely. So.
Susan is, in a very positive way, relentless. She just keeps plugging and plugging, will not take no for an answer, and I mean that in a nice way, you know, because there were a couple of times I was like, listen, I'm gonna pass. Oh, no, you're not. No, you're not. And I'm glad I did it. It's nice. So you've done a lot of work, and I want to recognize that, so thank you.
Well, I want the trustees to, you know, the community to know who we are, what
Yep.
we do, and you do an excellent job in what you do, and I love working with you that
Thank
way. And I thank you for that compliment.
Sure.
And you told some good jokes today.
Yeah.
That were age appropriate.
Yeah. Thank you.
We
We were waiting for the kids to come in, so we had a little downtime, so I told a couple of jokes.
Stephen, who's the Australian fellow, the Irish, late night talk show?
Yes, I like him.
Yes.
I can't remember
I
his
can't think
name.
of his name, but he's always doing the songs and the dancing and things.
Yeah.
Right? The last thing on the education is East Hampton Fair in May, and I've already called the Chamber of Commerce, signed up. I'm going to do the tent and the T-shirts. I'll ask Ashley or Barley. And I want to thank Barley on camera for allowing us to have Ashley Oliver
Yeah,
for
she's
the day.
good.
It's terrific.
Yeah,
So
nice kid.
I'll do the East Hampton Chamber of Commerce again. And if anybody would like to join in, please, you know, feel free. And that's May 11th, Saturday.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Very nice.
All right, move on to Georgica. Floken?
Okay, Floken is 17 Association Road. We actually voted for a bulkhead replacement on this property a couple months ago. They held back on the permit just a little bit, because what happened is they decided they wanted to go back to the DEC with a modification to add some core logs. There's some part of the property that is not bulkheaded right now, that there was a fair bit of wind-driven erosion, wave erosion, that they wanted to address, and to keep everything in order, they've kind of put back a proposal to the DEC. So I spoke to their office today. They do not, as far as I know, they don't have DEC, the modification approval yet, and they'll come back to us when they have it.
Okay.
I was actually in the office today looking for that file, and Arlene and I
I
couldn't
know,
find it.
I don't know where it would be. I actually, you know, Arlene, when I went back, just because sometimes at meetings, you've handed the whole file over, but no, I don't have it, so.
Yeah, that was another suggestion I had, is redoing those files as with the numerical addresses instead of names. Because it's so confusing when you go there, when you don't know the name, and if the file is under the name, but all the applications and everything we have references the address, the physical address.
Yeah, I was in the fire marshal's office today, and they have everything by tax map number.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't go with tax map number, because we don't always have the tax map numbers, but the,
Well,
like,
we should.
17 associate, well, maybe have both on there. So I know some of them you do have, but just do the 17 Association Road, because that's never gonna change, you know.
It's not a bad idea.
It would
Well,
just be
that's-
more user-friendly,
That's not quite true,
trying to
because my
look-
address has
look at
changed.
those.
The
Right.
town told me I was 26 South Embassy Street for years, and I could never
Now
understand
everybody
why.
knows where you are.
I could never understand why every time you got deliveries, they went to the wrong address, and you know why? My address isn't 26 South Embassy Street, it's number 2 South Embassy Street, but that's what the town
We'll
told
come
me.
visit you tomorrow, now that we know
That's what the
where you
town told me I was, so. Sometimes the addresses aren't great.
Some of them Marlene has,
Yeah.
you know, redone the files but I would like to see all of them.
Tax maps are very good. I mean, as a real estate broker, I will tell you that that is the first thing.
Well,
you
even the address is
readily
far
find
better
it.
than what we're doing now.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I don't
It's
think-
so frustrating
these files
sometimes
are
trying to
so
go in there and
old.
find something.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody anticipated properties changing hands in LLCs. And
Right.
that's really
That's
where
really
we've lost it.
frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, when talking about tax map numbers, what I notice with other governmental boards, when they reference like the architectural review or the planning, you know, they'll open up the application by saying, Mr. Smith, Suffolk County tax number, and maybe we should do
And
that
then the physical
as a
address.
practice
Yeah. No, it's
to get it
helpful.
on record. That seems to be,
Yeah, I think we
That would
should
be a bad
be
idea.
going to go to, because all the information in the town, you put the tax map number and everything just pops up.
right, right.
And even your surveyors, most of them, that's how they index
look
the
at the
surveys, is through
application,
tax
Right.
numbers.
So maybe we could try that, and I think that it serves an important purpose.
I would second that, absolutely.
Yeah, all right, good,
It's a no-brainer of a practice.
okay.
We'll work on
Good
that.
idea.
All
All
right.
these addresses, sometimes there's, the Google Maps can be off from the town, you know, there's been a lot of discrepancies in addresses, so
Okay,
tax map's a good way to do it.
good.
It used to be number 9, now number 11. I moved up.
Get drive and street wrong, and place, drive, street, Ave, all that gets mixed up.
Okay. With that, Skylight East LLC.
We did that one already. We also did 3 Cove Hollow
Oh, we
Farm
did that one.
Road, 7
Okay.
Cove Hollow Road.
Great.
Roads Committee.
Roads Committee report?
Roads, we've been discussing, just see how the board feels about proposing to maybe get some estimates from some surveyors and actually have some of our roads surveyed. And, you know, maybe start out with one and see how it goes, or get the cost first, and if anybody has any objections to that.
Well, what use of the survey? What's the use on the survey? How are you?
Well, because kind of like right now, we go there and, you know, we stand around and we look at the road and we look at the properties and we kind of scratch our head and you're not sure.
We go
Really-
by path.
Right, how
old
far,
paths,
how wide the
impressions.
road actually is and how far it goes down and.
Okay.
Yeah, I
'cause
can
you-
embellish that a little
and-
bit, Jim. There are certain instances where there are clear encroachments that don't have easements.
Right.
And in some cases, it could be helpful to clearly stake out and delineate the roads properly. Like in Midland Highway,
And, yeah,
we
that
were
would be
able
really
to
for
realize
certain
a
address.
very nice improvement to clear the unimproved area of Midland Highway of deer fencing. And the owner actually reduced the size of his fencing. You remember that report to the board some time ago, maybe 6 or 8 months ago. However, another section of the road has 3 driveway aprons that are well within the trustee property envelope that haven't been addressed.
Easements for.
And it may be, in that case, may be helpful to have it clearly delineated. In addition, when you get into the unimproved section, as Del pointed out, you are kind of guesstimating, because there's not a lot of existing staking or
Well, that's
Yeah.
memorial
about
markers.
cemetery,
Exactly.
where we have that whole
The-
mess there, and the use of that, the gentleman wanting to put that gate
That
up.
gate up.
It would be really clear to clear up his issue, the cemetery issue, and the property that's physically owned by the trustees. And the only way you're gonna figure that out is with a survey.
Right.
Because you can guess all day long. The markers have been moved, fences have been built in
Built.
between what we presume is a property line
Is.
and the road now.
Yeah,
And then the
within
old
the
road bed you
encroaching
can
on the
see,
Trust Day
it's
Road.
on the other side of the
There's
fence.
so many obstructions and
Well, sometimes the roads
encroachments.
are put in the wrong spot.
You know, not
Just
all,
don't
not all
realize
of the
that.
roads are gonna need surveys,
Yeah,
clearly.
But if, yeah, if
But
we
there are
just, like,
some, and it seems to be
get
the
an
ones that
idea, right.
we've first run into that have turned into a little bit more than just, planning, remapping the
Right.
road,
Or a discussion
Well-
with an
we
owner.
can really
But
get a
just
lot of
get a couple,
information.
Do you
maybe
want to make a
getting-
motion to
getting
get,
some
to
idea.
get some pricing?
Prices,
And
and
maybe,
we can bring it
if,
back to the
if it's
board.
something that's really practical in the long term, I don't think it's a project that you're gonna embark upon and complete in a year.
Oh, well,
But I think it's
absolutely
one of
not.
those ones that if you have priorities, you do one or two a year maybe.
I mean,
And
we've only touched
And we
on,
budget a given amount of money for specific for that
Yeah.
purpose.
Where are you proposing to start?
Well, we're gonna talk about that over the next 2
Well,
weeks. We have several
yeah.
ideas. We'd like to
Okay.
present that at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to, among the committee, to come up with a few ideas and then propose them to the rest of the board and get approval per road. You know, I mean, not really look, I mean, maybe we're
well,
looking.
talk to the
maybe we're
surveyor,
looking
and maybe,
for approval
I mean,
for
I know
the
they're not gonna be
idea
able to
in
give
a-
us
in a
an
whole.
exact.
Yeah, no,
But
it's a
really
great
come to the
idea.
board and
Road
say,
and
look,
say-
this is what we
Well,
propose
I
But it
think,
just-
I
this
think
first
that's
one.
why, I
Kinda
think,
like
I
the
think
thing.
maybe
The
the
road by the
approach that
cemetery
you
with the
take on
gates is
this
the
That's a
first
really
place.
good one.
And then
to
you have,
actually
you said
come
there was
up
some obstructions.
with a priority
Midland.
list.
Midland
Here's a
Highway
road that we
Pretty
think is
specific
important,
situations
and
like that, you should go
get
right for
pricing
it.
on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, those
And
two
then
are
we
perfect
can
examples.
react to that, and based on what that is,
Work there.
Yeah, that's,
maybe this
that's another issue.
works out really well.
Not as
I mean, you know,
complicated.
Reaching out to get some
Maybe-
prices from a couple
However many
surveyors.
I
can
think it's
afford a year.
very important to get a
Too.
hold of the inventory.
Well, one, the inventory, but
Yeah.
also
Well,
the
we have an
physical
idea what that
locations.
is from,
We're,
you know.
we're gonna continue to do site visits, but in addition to that, this is an adjunct project. And, you know, I would like to make a motion that, our committee go out and get some prices and make some priorities, for the next meeting.
I'd like to second that motion and try to get the committee to approve it,
Okay.
us looking for some prices to start with.
All-
Anybody
in-
opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Great, Thank you.
Okay.
Good progress.
I agree that I think it'll be important to identify several properties to start in order to go out and get some pricing as well, because the surveyor will be unable to give us any type of estimate. So
Right.
I think the committee meets, identify a couple properties that maybe we want to start with, or a priority list, and then we can go out and try to get some pricing. Will be a good way to approach it.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Move on to administrative payment of the bills. We have Seacoast Enterprise Associates, $1,251.20 for the pump-out boat. East Hampton Star, $300.58. Ready Fresh, which is for the water, $39.09. Optimum, $167.80. I want to look into this, because I'm not sure we're still using this service.
The optimal?
Yeah, since the town switched to LightPath, I believe our phones is on that system,
Yeah, look into it, sure.
and,
Yeah, if we have two pipes coming in, we could retire one of them.
yeah. Matthews, Kirsten Cooley, $687.50 for Zweig, and Staples, $63.85.
I make a motion, we pay all the bills.
With the exception of Optimum?
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean,
No,
we
we
have
gotta pay
to,
it.
we have to cancel before
have
they,
to.
we don't have to keep
Okay.
paying them.
It's not our fault,
That-
it's not their fault.
Right, that's not how we do it at the Burns house.
We just have to confirm that we're still using this service in the
All right,
office.
sorry. I thought-
Second.
Thought I was home. I don't pay them,
All in favor?
stiff them.
Minutes, December 10th.
I have reviewed them and I made one change. Oh, no, I'm sorry, yes, I reviewed those and I said they were fine. The last organizational meeting, I did make a change, and I think, Susan, you also made a change on it as well, so it was one small change.
Motion to approve with amendments?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and minutes from the meeting, January 7th?
Those are the ones I.
That's the ones that we just approved.
Those were the
We approved
amendments.
both, I believe, Fran.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
All right, financial report.
I'd like to just make a motion that we allow us till the next meeting to review the one in question, this one.
Yeah, it's our year-end numbers, so.
January through
Yep.
December?
Yep, January
Motion to table?
through December.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the only thing I have on the report of the clerk is I had promised to, we discussed our certificates of deposits and how little we're gaining on those. And so I've given you all this packet from this NICLAS, which is a government program. It's a New York Cooperative Liquid Assets Security System. At the moment, it's paying 2.24%. It's completely accessed electronically, so that we can move money around that way, you know, within 24 hours. So if everybody could just look through this stuff, have any questions, and
This
we'll
is-
talk about it next meeting.
Is this being used by the town and stuff?
The town has some of their funds in this, and a lot of fire departments are using it.
2018.
A lot of municipalities are using it. There's also in the back an example of what we would have had gained over the last year if we had had it in there. It didn't make it on this one, but. Oh, here it is.
We have that, yeah.
Here it is. So
How much you could
this,
have earned.
this last page is what we would have earned in interest.
Supposed to.
I have to get a comparison on the CD.
It's not much.
It's not much at all.
1.02 or something.
Yeah.
Very minimal.
You were doing the mosquitoes.
Okay, so we'll deal with this next meeting.
Francis, can I bring up one last thing?
Sure,
before we go?
absolutely.
About 3 years ago, Jim and I met with the Sag Harbor Village Board and their Harbor Management Committee. They had worked with Fred Thiel to expand their jurisdictional reach over in Sag Harbor. They had been granted 1,500 feet offshore jurisdiction many years ago, as many villages have been, and our town is along the Gardner's Bay shoreline in the outer waters. And recently, they were approved to expand that jurisdiction out to the channel off of Havens Beach and eastward to the western edge of Barcelona Neck. They promised the trustees that they would be developing a waterways management plan for that area. One of the provisions that Jim and I negotiated was in that area, all East Hampton residents would have the same rights as Sag Harbor Village residents. So that was something that we felt was
Yeah.
important.
For example, mooring permits, you know, there's a different rate schedule for non-residents than for residents. And what we had asked, and they agreed years ago, was that they would basically bill East Hampton residents the same way that they were billing their Sag Harbor residents.
So, yeah, and if there were other criteria down the road, you know, East Hampton would be treated the same way. And, you know, they also, you know, created some areas that were for recreation, for moorings, and then there's a designated area where moorings aren't allowed. And I'm not sure if everyone was sent this, but if not, maybe Arlene could make sure that everyone gets a copy to take a look at. There is a public comment period on the final version of the management plan through February 12th.
Did your items make it into the plan?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
I'm gonna double check. I haven't had a chance to truly dissect it, but at the surface, it looks like, you know, in general, what was discussed has been put forth. John Parker, to his credit, has made a proactive effort from their Harbor Management Committee to reach out to us.
Did he come to the meeting, by the way, for the water testing, right?
He was at the
Yes.
aquaculture
Yes, yes.
review.
Thought I recognized this.
And he did make sure we got copies of everything, so I do want to thank him as a member of their Harbor Management Committee, you know, to
Is
reach
there a
out to us.
specific town board meeting that you wish us to attend to speak on?
They'll be meeting again on the 12th, so if anyone
February
has any concerns or they just wish to be in attendance at the village, it is in the municipal building on Main Street in Sag Harbor. But, you know, please take a look if you have any questions. Jim and I are a little bit more familiar with it. But for the most part, it looks like, you know, everything has been done accordingly. And the trustees are to be consulted with before any future changes are made. So we have a letter of understanding that Francis was able to dig up with Arlene and make sure we have a copy of it signed by the mayor. So we have a mutual, you know, kind of understanding.
Thank you for doing this.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
no,
you and
you're
Jim
welcome.
working on this. It sounds like a very good thing for East Hampton residents. And
Was that bordered? Okay, no.
how is the water management program going there? I recently was reading about that when John came to us and we're.
Their water
hoping-
testing program?
Yeah, how is that going?
Well, they'll be, Dr. Gobler, as he does for us, will be preparing a report to the village, and as co-contributors to that, we should get a copy of that. So I think this year, when we invite Dr. Gobler in to give his East Hampton presentation, we should ask for an adjunct report on how things went in Sag Harbor.
Good.
So why don't we do that and see when Dr. Gobler is available to give us the annual update.
Good. Excellent. Okay.
And Arlene, could you make sure everyone gets a copy of this, please, if they didn't for some reason? Yeah, no, thank you, Arlene.
Okay,
Hey,
anyone have anything else?
You know, well, this may have even been done. I know we had talked about some things informally about Diane's role with the trustees for the time that she was on the board, about doing some sort of a plaque or some sort of commemoration of her time on the board. I was wondering how the rest of the board felt, and if we've already discussed this and I missed it, I apologize.
I don't think you have.
I think it's
Anyone have a suggestion?
more than appropriate to do that, and I would be willing to run with
Well,
that.
okay,
And-
how about somebody put something together
Yeah.
and then we,
Yeah.
I'm in favor.
All right.
How about John Courtney also?
Sure.
Well,
yeah,
We'll
yeah, I
come
think,
up
Yeah, we should probably include John Courtney in the considerations.
we can do
Right,
that
so
for
we're
John.
talking about making a plaque then?
Thank you for
Name
the
and
service.
For some reason, I
Sure,
thought we
I'll
had,
Okay.
maybe we
no, I don't
didn't.
think we did.
Education.
Yeah.
Yeah, John,
I thought we
I don't know
did
if we
too,
did
when we first
anything.
got on the board.
For you many years.
You know what?
Yeah,
I think we had the town do
Deep
a
gratitude. and
Proclamation.
proclamation.
something nice.
Yeah, I think we had
Okay.
town.
Grass, luck on a wooden.
And we may end up doing something like that also for Diane, you know?
Trustee,
She did a lot of good
trustee
work.
emblem,
That'd be cool.
right?
Yeah, I don't know how much you want to spend, but yeah, I like
Well,
that.
let's go, let's see what it costs.
Okay.
Come up with a design, see what it
Okay.
costs, and then, okay.
Yes, let's go.
We have a motion?
A motion to depart, close? Yes, I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I already wrote it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Favor?
Good
All
night,
right,
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. I will